And with that, we should be live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to JACKDAUDIBLE'S Rook Club. Lovely to see you all this fine Wednesday evening. I am brought together by a bunch of lovely, beautiful people from my Discord server. Say hello, everybody, to Emily, of course, reprising now as our main character, Sidony. And then we have Venom. We have Venom. And then we have Waxy. And we have Tiny. Yeah, everybody say hi to Tiny, Waxy, Emily, and Venom. How are you all doing today? Really, really appreciate you all coming on to do the read of Murder by Death Mages.
Hello.
What we're going to do...
Excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce everybody. We're just going to chat about Dragon Age, a little bit of what we've seen this past week, and then we're going to be jumping into Murder by Death Mages with a really fun cast. Yeah, it's going to be really great. This one is all about Navaran political intrigue with a reprising Inquisition character, so it really kind of sets the scene for certain Navaran Mortalitasi influences and yeah, how they navigate the political terrain of Navarra. But folks, what were our thoughts? And this is to everybody in Discord. What were our thoughts on yesterday's IGN 22 minutes of gameplay in a non-spoilery way for those who are absolutely trying to avoid it? Yeah, what were your main takeaways?
Oh man, I thought it just looked brilliant.
Yeah.
I went in for 2 minutes, felt it was very not 2 seconds, and then felt like, oh my god, there's going to be so much spoilers, so I went away. But it looked beautiful.
Yeah, the lighthouse, I mean, damn.
It was very beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
Oh, for sure.
It, I will say it did feel sort of nostalgic but new at the same time. Like it felt like I was coming home.
Yeah.
I was coming home, but I had added some rooms to my house. So it was familiar.
It felt very...
So like I added it. That's all I can describe it.
I don't understand why they say it doesn't feel like Dragon Age, because it did look like Dragon Age.
Has that been some criticisms online? People saying that it doesn't feel or look like Dragon Age?
I feel like... So it does, though.
It does, yeah.
I feel like with every new piece of information, every new video that comes out, like, people are having less and less negative things to say because it looks just amazing. So
yeah.
I don't care about the spoilers. You know, we're going to be getting it anyway. So I'm going to watch every scrap of news up to then.
Hell yeah.
The only thing that I'm really avoiding is, like, some of the community members who... you know, are under NDAs but are still really excited, and they've let some things kind of slip. So I'm just kind of avoiding their stuff for now, which is unfortunate. But
I completely get that too. Yeah, I kind of it gets a bit like they want to tell us something, but then they're not telling us, and it's like, okay, so you're teasing us, but then you're not going to tell us.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know anyway. That's not fair on all the rest of us. It's like, just either say it or don't say it, but don't tease us, because then it kind of comes across of, oh, I know something that I can't tell you. Wink, wink, wink.
I know something you don't know.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm not a fan of that behavior either. But no.
Like with a friend, I went over and we put it on slow motion, and we watched, and I still didn't see the damn what they were teasing. I had no idea. I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, I'm guessing it's... Well, I don't want to say anything because maybe...
Yeah. I mean,
I think I know what it is, but it's huge, and I don't want to... I said it in the stream, and I was like, shit. But I also don't know, because that's the thing. It's like...
My only other criticism was that, like, everything has looked so good, but why did the Kunari rook look cross-eyed?
Yes,
that was my only...
Way too smooth. Where were the wrinkles?
On Twitter, someone said he looked like Ken, and I was like, oh, Canary. So, like, no, It looks like he has been, like, in one of those rock tumblers, you know, for too long.
Yeah.
And it's been smoothed out. It's like,
yeah. Rendered too
nicely.
Yes.
Yeah. It's. I think the only critique I had was the Kunari just not looking amazing compared to looking at the Arashock in Dragon Age 2. All the wrinkles, the dynamics there.
Oh, right. Yeah. His design was amazing.
Like, yeah. The facial animations are a little bit rigid, but that's That's forgivable. I'm not bothered about facial animations. I don't play Bioware games for that anyway. But I'm not a mage player personally. I'm warrior and rogue. And when I looked at the warrior gameplay compared to the mage, I was a lot more attracted to the warrior gameplay. It looked so grandiose, so epic, so fluid.
I'm not gonna lie, I was too.
Yeah.
And, like,
I've
that
always
being
been.
a mage
sorry.
first. Like,
I've always been attracted to like mage stuff, but like
Yeah.
this and the warrior combat that they showed, it was
Yeah.
like I might want to play like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a warrior or a rogue or.
I need to see more of the mage. I need to see the other classes too, because it was the Death Caller, I believe. It looked great, but I don't know if it was the level or the player skills or whatever, but there was a lot of fade stepping, a lot of like trying to get away from the fight and then get to a ranged ability. But by the time they got to that, the Darkspawn had already caught up to them, so they were already striking again. And it just was a bit like, am I just constantly dodging as a mage? When do the abilities come into play? You know, and we eventually did see a lot of those attacks that looked amazing towards the end. But initially I was like, oh, okay. But then you look at the warrior, they're in the heat of battle, they're swinging it around, they can do like lots of multi-enemy attacks. So maybe that's just my own playstyle. We'll need to see more for sure, I think.
I think too, some people on Reddit were talking about it. Why did they use a necrotic build mage to fight
Darkspawn?
Darkspawn?
Yes,
I
yes,
was questioning that.
yes.
It's kind of funny to me.
It's true. A fire mage would have been brilliant.
Yeah, so I think that was just like we saw how, I don't know, how it could get difficult depending on what play style you go with, and I think that's probably a good thing too. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
But still, that was really funny.
It did demonstrate a rough time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It did.
Maybe they just really wanted to show us the healing
Struggle.
magic, and that was the whole point.
True. And I mean, NL Laura in the chat has a really good point of the voice didn't match the face, and it's true. I love Alex Jordan as British male rook, but we've also got an American rook by John. Oh, I can't remember their name particularly, but we've got more voice actors that we need to hear too. You know, I love hearing again British male rook, but there's the other actor who's playing American rook, and that would have been a perfect opportunity to hear American rook with that Qunari, I think.
Yeah, because in Inquisition, the like American accent was a lot, or his voice was a lot deeper as well.
For sure, and suited more dwarves and Qunari, and I don't know if they're going for that this time around, but I'm presuming they are. So it would have been a good opportunity to hear that American rook for sure.
Yes.
But I mean, we can remiss on all the things that overall for me, I was really happy to see, and I'm very surprised by the spoilers and how much they did reveal. Like John Epler and Corin were just like spoiler, and I'm like, damn, I'm fine with it because of theory crafting and wanting to know parts of these theories that we're saying for something to be true. I like, but at the same time, there was a huge spoiler in the dialogue that I'm like, shit, that's a huge part of the game. That's like, okay, that is absolutely happening now. No matter what happens in that quest, I know the end result, and so it's like, okay, so that's interesting, and that's like no, that's to some extent it's like knowing like Hawk or Alistair in the Phage. You have to choose between one of them. It's knowing a big conclusion to a huge narrative, and so that's a bit. I don't know why that was kept in there, to be honest. Maybe, I don't know. It's a bit weird.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
why I
like
left
a
after.
sense of like a blindness in certain areas now, because like these are all things that they've known for a very long time, but like maybe they've kind of lost track of what the audience actually does and doesn't know.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And it is a tiny dialogue, and I may also be taking it out of context too. I don't think I am, but it is also just a tiny dialogue. Hello, Lambo. How are you doing? Good to see you in the chat.
There's also like, if they are revealing that, what are they not revealing?
Also
Which is,
true.
like,
Yeah, maybe there's something bigger. Because if they can casually throw out that information, what are they not saying?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
that's
true.
just
Yeah.
that's why I'm okay
That's
with
a fair
it, because
point.
I sort of maybe that there's something bigger that we don't
Yeah.
know.
And
I need bigger.
We're finding more spoilers about Gil, and we hardly know anything
Oh,
about Elgarnoth.
good point.
Keeping it
Good point. And the same with Tash's marketing. Tash is barely in the
Yeah, what the
marketing.
heck is
Yeah.
going on with
And
her?
it's just
Yeah.
making us all go,
And
like,
even people were asking, you know, the things in the Discord that I was seeing today, and they're like, "Don't worry, she'll get her big moment." Like, so what? Is
Okay.
she
Yeah.
like, what's going on with her?
Or a
It's
big
true.
moment. Maybe
Should
she
I
turns
be
into a
scared?
dragon.
Oh,
That's what
Oh,
I
maybe
think.
she's one of
Oh.
the dragons.
Oh, that'd
She
be
just is a dragon. Like, that's probably
I
it.
don't know why, but when I look at her, I think of, okay, don't come at me. So I play League of Legends, and there's this champion called Shyvana, who's like this dragon thing.
Yeah.
And like what she can do is one of her abilities is turn into a dragon and like come at you and kill you. And that's kind of like the vibes I get from
Yeah.
Tash.
Yeah.
But that's just my own
I
little
mean, she does breathe fire, so.
Yeah, it's true.
exactly. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Could
That'll be
be.
sick. And finally
And she
connecting the
hoards-
Kunari to
She
dragons finally.
hoards treasure.
Mm.
She hoards treasure,
Yeah.
and she lives in the dark basement. That's very dragon behavior.
It's true.
I think she and I are gonna be soul sisters. Love dark spaces and treasure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
the
Fairy
other
Ring,
little
it hasn't just yet. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I really appreciated the confirmation on which room was Davrin's room.
Yes, me too, because I was like, oh, that's definitely not Davrin's room. Oh, wait, no, it is. I saw a Grey Warden shield in, I believe it's Tash's room. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's clearly Davrin's. But no, that must be Tash hoarding it or collecting it, or there may be some significance to a Grey Warden character, or many.
I was wondering if it was just like faction decorations for a rook.
Also true. Yeah. No, it was cool to see that, and I love Nev's room. The investigation board in the corner, like I love that. I feel seen. What is everybody's rook gonna be before we jump into Murder by Death Mages? Oh, their first rook. Sorry, your first rook.
I definitely want to play a Kunari, Mage, Warden.
Hell yes.
For my first rook.
Hell yes.
Warden
that's
for
sick.
the Warden.
Hell yeah. Tiny.
I have not decided yet. Like,
Yeah.
I have such a hard time deciding because they all sound like really fun to play.
Hell yeah.
I'm probably gonna play an elf though,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I love elves. So,
Hell yeah.
so
Venom.
probably an elf.
Oh yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I usually always play Elf, so I'm definitely starting that way. But faction-wise, I have no freaking clue.
Yeah.
There are at least 3 that are like on equal level for me right now.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Emily.
Well, I think I've
Yeah.
discussed this in almost every video now, so I apologize. But Elf, Spellblade, Lord of Fortune. However, I saw the combat today. What was the new stuff that
the
was
new stuff.
posted for a Rogue? Did you see that yet?
I haven't
The
seen
little
it yet.
videos.
I've retweeted it. I
Okay.
haven't. Is it good?
Oh, it's making me change my mind. That's the problem. Okay, well maybe I should go Rogue, but now it won't fit into what I have planned out. So I don't know. Either or. Spellblade or Rogue. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll roll
It's
a
gonna-
dice or
Yeah.
coin when the game comes out.
It's gonna be like BG3 when you have like 10 characters that you
Yeah.
play simultaneously. Be
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah. Recreate. Create another one. I've already told everybody many times. Whatever the two-handed Slayer, a Morn Watcher human Slayer, is what I'm going to be doing. I'm pretty sure. I need to see two-handed combat, but seeing the warrior, I'll need to look at the rogue combat after this as well. But yeah, I'm
Honestly,
feeling
that
it.
is just so metal. Like,
Isn't it? You can imagine them with like a massive like guitar instead.
please.
Yeah, it's true. It is quite metal. And then I'm going to be doing an Antivan Crow elf afterwards for sure. Romancing whoever the betrayer is. Unless Rook's the betrayer.
Of course.
But
So what if Tosh
I'll go
is
for it.
the betrayer?
I mean,
What if Tosh is?
I'm feeling it.
What if they're all betrayed?
They
And it
all
depends on how
stab you in the
good your
back.
relationship with it's like, great.
Well,
See, that's what I think.
Yeah. A good idea is like, what if the betrayer is dependent on your approval systems of characters.
Mhm.
So
Mm,
it could be anybody who you have the lowest
That's what I
approval with.
really want.
Yeah. So
that
it's
would
like,
be
Right, just slots in whoever's the lowest.
yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Or if you like don't save like a key part of their faction or something, or you make a choice like similar with like Iron Bowl or something like that, probably.
Yeah.
Mm.
Lambert in chat says Asan is the betrayer. Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Not with his floppy ears.
And his nervous squeaks. Oh. Anyway, we will jump into Murder by Death Mages. So again, we have Emily taking the lead role as Sidony, and then we have Waxy as Mortalitasi Antonia. We have Venom as Navaran Elf Cyros. We have Tiny as Nicholas Reinhardt, as well as Cassandra Pendergast. So Murder by Death Mages has been written by Caitlin Sullivan Kelly. She actually worked on a lot of the SWTOR stuff and a bit of Dragon Age stuff too. But yeah, we are going to jump straight into this one. So if everybody has either their wine or their tea, we have defined it as mandatory that to a book club you either have tea or wine. So yeah, as long as everybody is ready, we will jump straight into Murder by Death Mages. So I'm going to take a swig of tea first.
Yes.
And let's go.
Here we
Damned
go.
statues. She had always hated them, hated the over-exaggerated poses, hated the reminders of impossible achievements constantly hanging over everyone, hated how people worshipped and prayed at what was nothing more than pretty hunks of stone. She hated them when she was young and alone, cowering in alleyways and begging for scraps while other children played with toy swords in the monument's shadows, shouting over who got to be which famous dragon hunter, crowing as they slew imaginary archdemons. When she joined the Inquisition, Sidony believed she'd never have to walk the streets of Navarra City again, never have to see the Vasquez nobles waste good coin on frivolity and shallow attempts at dressing the monuments to their ancestors prettier than their rivals could dress theirs. But here she was, pushing through clustered knots of artists and florists and actors, bustling about the garish things with enough flowers, candles, and drapes to fill every chantry in Thedas. She had never cared for the pageantry of this tradition, or understood why the rich and powerful spent so much to revere their dead. The dead were all the same, just food for scavengers or tools to use in battle. If the nobility thought retelling the heroic triumphs of their bloodlines year after year meant they shared in those accomplishments, they were mistaken. Navarran nobles weren't good for anything anymore, except maybe Cassandra Pendergast. Hell yes. Sidony had found it amusing how Pendergast's brow furrowed as she read the letter Sidony had brought to her. She couldn't say she had felt the same kind of alarm when she had first received it. Pendergast's concern had been so great that she immediately whisked the letter away to a meeting with the other Inquisition leaders. They could not easily overlook claims that Mortalitasi, one of the influential and highly respected mages charged with tending Navarra's dead, was planning to assassinate a member of Navarra's already unstable line of succession. Especially when those claims came straight from another Mortalitasi, one that Sidony once knew. Later, Pendergast, bearing her usual grave expression, had summoned Sidony to the Inquisition's war room with a simple order. Return to Navarra City and to put an end to the Mortalitasi's plot, quietly and before further intervention was required. Sidony had protested. She had no desire to set foot in that place ever again.
There are other Navarrans in the Inquisition. Send one of them.
None of the other Navarrans have your intimate knowledge of the Mortalitasi.
Pendergast reminded her.
And none of the other Navarrans would rather feed themselves to a wyvern than return to Navarra City.
Sidony replied.
Any mage in the Grand Necropolis could be involved. If we send anyone else to question Lord Henrik, do you think he would trust that they were not sent to silence him?
I don't care.
Sidoni spat.
I have no interest in getting mixed up in whatever diplomatic scuffle is brewing between the Mortalatasi and the nobles.
The matter is simpler than you're making it out to be, Sidoni.
Pendergast's voice began to echo off the ceiling of the war room.
Go to the Grand Necropolis. Learn which Mortalitasi in this would-be assassin is this would-be assassin, then stop them. There is already so much tension among the royal families. Something like this could be what tips the whole country into chaos. The Inquisitor does not want to see that happen to Navarra. Not if we can stop it.
That doesn't sound simple to me.
Pendergast sighed.
Our only lead has asked for you, and you will be the one to go. That is an order.
Ooh. Sidoni had snatched the letter out of Pendergast's hand before turning to go.
Lord Henrik has put himself in a precarious position by informing us of this. Do you really not wish to help him?
Pendergast had asked.
He saved you, raised you, taught you what you know.
A Mortalatasi does not save anyone. Anything that isn't a corpse just gets in their way. He would know. You should know better than anyone, Seeker.
It was the last thing Sidoni had said before storming out through the war room's massive door. Those words echoed in Sidoni's head as she continued down the bustling street, louder and louder, until she had to duck into an alleyway out from under the stony glares of the statues. The more she looked at them, the more they twisted and contorted, until all she could see was the vacant face of Henrik's lifeless body. He got in Mortalatasi's way, but which one? She leaned against the cool stone wall of the alley, deep in the slanting shadow cast by the setting sun, and let out a harsh breath. Her teeth clenched as a memory filled her vision. One of her, deep in the Grand Necropolis, standing next to a granite table used to prepare the dead for their interment. She balled her hands into shaking fists and pressed them to her eyelids, fighting against the sight of Henrik's withered body on the table. But no matter how hard she fought, the memory of his mangled limbs and his skin drained of all colour would not leave her mind. She bent forward at the waist, remembering how she had demanded the other Mortalatasi tell her what had happened, how their voices had shouted over her questions, desperate to stop the scene she was making. The accusations and threats she had hurled, even as they grabbed her by the arms and forced her from the necropolis, did nothing to make them tell her what she wanted to know about what happened to Henrik, about anything he might have known about an assassin scheming in the shadows, poised to strike, an assassin hidden well within the ranks of powerful mages, considered nigh untouchable by most of Navarra. The matter is simpler than oh, is this somebody else? Oh, no, that's in her head. The matter is simpler than you're making it out to be, Sidoni. Simple. Except for the fact that the Mortalatasi refused to answer her questions, and the only man who could have guided her to the killer she was hunting was dead. With no one to turn to for answers, she had failed before she'd even started. The sun slipped away into twilight. Sitting in the darkened alleyway, Sidoni remembered another moment. She couldn't recall how old she had been at that time, or how long it had been since her mother had had chased her from their home after discovering Sidoni's magic. She had been curled up in an alley just like this one, struggling to conjure even the smallest spark to keep out the bitter cold, when an austere-looking man had bent down beside her and peered at what she was doing. She had scrambled away, thinking she had met her end. This man had come to imprison her or kill her, or whatever else the rest of the world did to little girls with magic.
You're scaring the poor thing, Henrik.
A bright-faced woman with hair the colour of burnished brass had said from where she hovered in the alley's opening?
I guess we don't have anyone for Henrik.
I'll do that. It's all right, Antonia. She just needs some help, the man had replied. He stretched his hands towards Sidony, and she tentatively leaned forward. A bright, dancing flame burst from his palms, engulfing Sidony in warmth, her first magic lesson. For all the years she had lived with Henrik after that, he had been a recluse. Recluse. Immersing himself in his studies within the necropolis and in training Sidony. She searched her memories, and she couldn't think of a single person he had ever trusted, or even called a friend, except for that mage, Antonia, in the alleyway that night. If she was the only person Henrik trusted enough to know that he had taken a young, cast-off mage from the streets, what other secrets had he confided in her? Ooh. The woman was easy enough to find. Few Mortalitassi came into the city unless they were tending to the business of a death, and even fewer Mortalitassi matched Antonia's description. Sidony only had to ask a few people before she picked up a trail. Each person she questioned was spellbound when they realised exactly who the old friend Sidony was looking for. They eagerly pointed her to the place where they saw the woman most, a nearby tavern frequented by heavy gamblers. Night had completely fallen by the time Sidony found the place. Inside, she spotted Antonia instantly. Dressed in an unadorned burgundy robes and wearing the same bright face she saw the night Henrik found her. In the Inquisition, Sidony had witnessed a fair share of things that were odd or unexplained. But seeing a death mage tucked away in the corner of a rowdy tavern, happily poring over a small stack of books, while the other patrons not so subtly watched from a respectful distance, was something else entirely. Sidony walked to the back of the dimly lit room, rolling her eyes as though she passed, pretended not to stare over their cups. Wood scraped across stone as she roughly yanked the chair opposite the yellow-haired Mortalitassi backward and sat down. A man wearing a loose shirt and apron rushed over, but one scornful look from Sidony sent him back behind the bar. Antonia's serene look lifted into a smirk as she flipped the next page of her book. A moment passed in silence, broken only by the sounds of scraping parchment, a wine goblet being picked up and put back down, and the soft murmur of conversation from the rest of the tavern. Words were difficult for Sidony on most occasions, and now she was really unsure how to begin. This woman may have been someone Henrik trusted, but she was still a Mortalitassi. What do you know? Who are your allies? What could she possibly ask that didn't give away who she was really looking for?
Still silent as the grave. That hasn't changed.
Came the voice from the other side of the table.
What?
Sidony asked.
The night that I met you, you refused to so much as say hello.
The deaf mage replied, eyes still turned down toward her book.
Henrik often told me how difficult it was, raising a young girl who wouldn't open her mouth and speak.
I speak when necessary.
Sidony paused.
How much time has passed since you've last seen me? More years than I can count, yet you still know me on sight.
Antonia closed her book and smiled. Not out of amusement. It was a calm and tranquil expression.
Sidony, is it strange that I recognize a girl my very good friend used to tell me about every day? Henrik had his frustrations with you, especially about you choosing to run off and leave the Mortalitassi, but he had so many fond things to say about you too.
Antonia placed her book on top of the pile before smothering her long plait over the front of her shoulder. Sidony idly wondered how her hair had retained its hues after all these years.
And honestly,
Antonia chuckled.
once you see that dark, sour-faced expression of yours, it's hard to forget. That part hasn't changed much either.
I have no interest in trading pretty barbs with you.
Sidony spat.
If you know who I am, then you know why I'm here.
I can probably guess, but please elaborate. I'm enjoying your natural gift for conversation.
Antonia's smile widened. Sidony sneered. She never expected this woman to freely give her the answers she needed, but she couldn't read anything about her, or what she knew about Henrik's suspicions. If she knew anything at all, or where her loyalties lay. Sidony could feel this lead slipping away, like she had when she discovered what had happened to Henrik. But if this woman had been Henrik's friend, shouldn't she be concerned about his fate? If Sidony could convince Antonia that she had returned to Navarra's city to learn what happened to them, play on her sympathies until she learned the truth, it could put her back on the assassin's trail.
I'm here for Henrik. What happened to him?
Sidony asked.
I saw his body. That was no natural death. The others refused to tell me anything. Then they threw me out.
Antonia frowned, and her eyes flicked away.
Would you like to come to a party?
She asked, looking back. Sidony worked her jaw and fixed her gaze squarely at the woman, trying to follow where she could possibly be leading. Her fists slowly clenched in her lap.
No, I would not,
she replied.
Are you sure?
The woman stood and gathered her few books under her arm.
I'm certain you'd find it very entertaining.
Sidony pushed back from the table and stood, her right fist flying behind her back, magic cracking and sparking in her palm. This woman would speak to her one way or another, and she didn't care who saw.
I don't find much of anything entertaining. Parties, least of all.
Sidony said as she stepped in Antonia's way, blocking her from leaving the table.
You are not leaving until you answer my questions.
Lady Antonia, is she bothering you? Should I remove her? The bartender, who had cleaned the same glass at least 6 times since Sidony first sat at the table, suddenly found the courage to approach the pair of mages. Antonia put her free hand towards him.
As amusing as it would be to see you try, I think you'd better let me handle this,
she said. The barkeep's confidence faltered, and he hesitantly backed away. The knowing smile Antonia wore vanished as she closed the distance between them. When she was close enough that no one, not even the nervous bartender, could hear her, Antonia spoke.
If I just turn you loose, you'll get yourself killed.
Sidony relaxed her fist, and the tinge of magic subsided. Antonia adjusted her books and said just as quietly,
Someone in this city has made a name for himself, turning over every stone in Navarra, unearthing debauchery and corruption for anyone who can pay for it.
Turning Sidony toward the door, Antonia guided her gently through the room. Eyes openly stared over rims of cups and over the tops of cards as they walked, the pretense of minding their own business abandoned long ago.
No one's secrets are safe from him.
She continued.
Not the rich, not the powerful, not even those who hide down in the darkest depths of the necropolis. If someone is hiding something from you, he can help you learn what it is.
They stepped into the chilly dark, and Antonio released Sidony.
In front of the statue of Tylus Van Markham, the one by the river, there's a manor with a red door. Be there tomorrow evening.
For a brief moment, Antonia regarded her with a serious look. Then she turned and walked back up the avenue, flickering candles at the base of the monuments, lighting the path in front of her feet. Damned statues! The sun had fallen below the river's opposite shore when Sidony finally stepped from behind the towering relief of Tylus Van Markham. With the hood of her raiment pulled far around the sharp angles of her face, she had watched the guests as they filed into the smooth stone manor across the boulevard. The men and women attended the fete, were dressed in whatever fete?
No, that is correct.
Fete, thank you. Were dressed in fine garments and flaunting more jewels than the richest dwarven merchant. Sidony marched towards the manor's entrance, tucking her hood away from her face and smoothing back her chin-length brown hair. Straightening her robes and wiping the city's grime from her mantle did nothing to make her look as extravagant as the other revellers, but at least she wouldn't stand out as much as she quietly slipped into the back of a raucous group of guests bursting through the front door. She barely had a chance to take in her surroundings in the imposing entryway before a yellow-haired blur swung her into an adjourned room. Antonia grabbed her arms before the defense spell that leapt into Sidony's mind could make its way to her fingertips.
It's me!
Antonia hissed. Sidony calmed the spark of magic before stepping back and yanking her arms out of Antonia's grip.
I apologize,
Antonia said, doing a poor job of stifling a laugh as she looked over Sidony.
But you stood out the moment you stepped inside the door. I didn't want you to draw too much attention.
Antonia's deep blood-red coat was designed to facilitate quick movement, cut to a length that put her black leather leggings and black boots on full display. Silver bangles twisted and coiled up one bare arm, and despite the ensemble's utilitarian quality, she was every bit as elegant and refined as the other nobles. She seemed as comfortable here as she was in the tavern.
And being shoved into a private chamber by a Mortalitasi dressed like a spindleweed bunch won't draw attention?
Sidony asked.
No more than usual. Everyone's used to that sort of thing at these parties.
That serene smile crept along Antonia's face, as if she were merely explaining the ways of the world to an ignorant child. Sidony rolled her eyes.
Enough. I told you, I don't like parties, and I'm not here for fun. Tell me, where can I find the secret dealer you mentioned?
Antonia sighed.
He's upstairs, flitting from crowd to crowd like a butterfly and pretending that no one notices him listening in. The lords and ladies feign disgust at his brazen eavesdropping to make their rivals believe that no one here would dare even speak to him.
I'm not interested in their games.
Sidony sneered, her fists clenched and unclenched a few times.
It's part of it. They all turn around and whisper their gossip to him when they're sure no one's listening. Open a book on Navarre's royal families and point to any name. By the end of the night, he'll have pieced together enough of a scandal to bring them down. I'm sure he could blackmail the entirety of King Marcus's court if he wanted to. Maybe even the king himself, if he were lucid enough to know he was being extorted. If anyone can find the truth about what happened to Henrik, he can.
Or, Sidony thought, he can tell me which one of you is a murderer, and which Eustace Noble is the prey. Antonia removed a ring from her hand, a large ruby cradled in a silver setting, detailed with what looked like finger bones, and slipped it onto Sidony's finger.
At least try to look like you belong here.
She again smiled. Flexing her fingers, Sidony flattened her lips into a line as she toyed with the unfamiliar weight.
Do you do this often?
She asked.
Drink in taverns while you study, revel with hypocritical nobles and their information dealers. I don't remember many Mortalitasi leaving the necropolis for these kinds of social calls.
It's gotten a bit too quiet down there for me in recent years.
Antonia's smile widened.
I've grown to prefer livelier settings.
No serious answer then, Sidoni thought. She turned and opened the ornately carved door. Music and the sounds of a lively debate between nearby guests spilled into the room.
When the dead are brought to us,
Antonia said.
I feel regret.
Sidoni stopped in the doorframe and looked at her. Antonia's smile was gone, replaced by a far-off look.
Regret that I'd never known these people in life. What drove them, what terrified them, what killed them. The people of Navarra hold the Mortalitasi in very high regard. They admire us. They appreciate our knowledge and our counsel, and they respect the important role we play in this country. Too many of my colleagues repay their confidence with avoidance.
Antonia walked a few paces forward, looking straight into Sidoni's face.
I am trying to tend more to the living, to get to know them and let them get to know me. They deserve to believe that I'm not only interested in getting my hands on their corpses one day. I do what I can to assure them of that, even if it's, how did you describe it, reveling with the hypocrite.
She glided past Sidoni into the entrance hall.
Wait upstairs. I'll make sure our man finds you,
she said, before disappearing into the party. Sidoni couldn't understand Antonia's desire to ingratiate herself with the people of Navarra City. If she could have it her way, she would leave the vapid creatures to fend for themselves, put them miles behind her on the road out of Navarra, but she'd be lying if she said she didn't understand Antonia's feeling of regret. Regrets like unfinished business, an assassin slipping through her fingers, or words she'd never gotten to say to a dead man down in the necropolis. She considered slamming the door as she entered the party, but that would draw too much attention. Men and women excitedly hurried past Sidoni as she ascended the wide staircase. Upstairs, the party was even livelier than it was below. Styles of music from instruments she'd never heard filled each room she passed. Laughter and cheers erupted from tables of card games. Couples danced and men slapped each other on the back, and everywhere she looked was another rich spread of food and drink. Sidoni moved to the outer edges of the raucous crowds. Enormous portraits in gilded frames loomed above her as she kept close to the walls. She spotted an empty, out-of-the-way aureole with delicately panned walls that would serve as a quick escape if things turned desperate. It was the perfect place to wait for Antonia's so-called scandal maker. The rowdy guests were too preoccupied to notice an unaccompanied woman keeping her distance from the entertainment, glowering at them as they danced and embraced and strolled, watching their faces for any sign of who she was looking for. Hours passed in that corridor without any sign from the secret dealer, or even Antonia. No one had even glanced in her direction. Her frustration once again for control of the search was suffocating. Inhaling sharply, she turned and glared down on the street below, considering her next move. Dozens of candles burned at the base of that repulsively opulent Tylers Van Markham statue, casting a dim glow where she had hidden earlier that evening. There, just beyond the reach of the candle's light, barely visible, was a figure, standing as still as the statue itself. She could feel magic radiating from the dark form, cold sensations of death that, even from this distance, made the hair on her arm stand on end. She watched the shadow where it lurked, waiting for it to move.
Sickening, isn't it?
Sidoni took her eyes away and turned. A young man, dressed in an ornately patterned coat, looked past her to the street below. Her face twisted into a frown, and the man laughed.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you.
He said,
I was talking about that irritatingly ostentatious statue. I would wager Dylas von Markham never found an occasion to pose like that.
Sidony turned her back and looked down again. The dark figure had disappeared, and she felt her body tense in annoyance. The man behind her didn't seem to notice, or he didn't care.
I'm so sick of seeing that pretentious shrine. We can't even walk the streets in peace without the Von Markham's constant desperate reminders that their station is far above our own. If they lived in the present, like the rest of us, maybe they'd have more to contribute to the country than plotting against every other noble family in between drunken alley spats.
I don't give a shit about the Van Markhams.
Sidony threw over her shoulders. The disgust dripped from his voice.
A Pentagast woman, then?
Sidony barked out a laugh. If only the Pentagast woman responsible for her being here could see this.
No.
She snapped as she faced him.
I am not a Pentagast woman, and I am not a Van Markham woman. I have more important things to concern myself with than the centuries-old pissing match.
Interesting.
The man smirked.
Right now, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in Navarra who thinks anything more is more important than that.
He rubbed his chin and asked,
When our frail king is gone, with no one to succeed him, do you think the Pentagasts and the Von Markhams will continue their squabble over their rightful heir in spirited discussions behind closed doors?
Just as she started to tell him she'd grown tired of his manifesto, her eyes leaped to his crimson gloves as he tugged at their cuffs. Expensively made, like the rest of his clothes, anyone could tell, even at first glance. Intricate stitching in the shape of a quill bloomed from the seams. Although Henrik had never prepared her for interacting with them, he had heavily emphasized learning about the royal families of her country, their tumultuous histories, their acrimonious rivalries, their ever-changing statues within the king's court. As much as she had tried to resist the lessons, many details still managed to sink in. Enough, at least for her to know that a quill was the heraldry of House Reinhardt, a minor family but one of the oldest in Navarra. The branches of their family tree stretched into the neighbouring Freemarches and into Orlais, but they never held much influence over their own nation.
No.
The man continued, oblivious to her silence.
They'll drag the war into the streets. Good people will fight and die for arrogant families who have no interest in listening to the rest of us.
Damn it, Antonia, Sidony thought, as she searched the crowd for an opening to escape the chattering windbag. Too much time had been wasted. She'd have to find a way forward in her pursuit without the scandal maker's help.
And the longer they bicker, the longer the kingdom has no heir. The longer they allow those damn Mortalitasi to circle the king like vultures, whispering in his ear.
Sidony's eyes snapped back to the Reinhardt Lord, a man drunk enough, or stupid enough, to shout accusations that the Death Mages were ruling the kingdom through manipulation. To shout accusations that the Death Mages were ruling the kingdom through manipulation was a man who might let slip rumors about a Mortalitasi assassin's plan to remove a noble from play, if he wasn't a target himself.
With no heir, the throne will sit empty, just waiting for the damn Death Mages to slither in and...
A man quickly walked past them, bumped into Reinhardt, cutting off the next part of his commentary. The glass he'd been holding fell to the ground. A servant appeared, as if from nowhere, to collect it, and disappeared just as quickly.
The Mortalitasi.
Sidony prompted in an attempt to regain his attention, impatience eating away at her.
Yes, Nicholas. Tell us all about these terrifying death mages. Tell us all about how they've infiltrated the king's chambers, how they've made themselves the secret rulers of Navarra.
A mocking voice rang out as a pair of graceful hands brushed off Reinhardt's jacket and straightened his shirt.
I was about to.
Reinhardt scowled as he baited the man's hand away. Or batted.
But it seems there's not much left to say now that you've blurted it all out, Cyrus.
Cyrus laughed, and Sidony glared at the interruption. He was dressed as well as most of the noblemen here, almost as lavishly as Reinhardt. His thick, honey-coloured curls were slicked back in a way that almost fully hid the tapered points of his ears. An elf in such finery, mocking and touching a member of old Navarran nobility, and no one batting an eye. This was someone welcomed with open arms and stacks of gold in circles fueled by secrets and scandals.
Nicholas, you're neglecting your other guests.
Cyrus wagered a scolding finger at Reinhardt.
You shouldn't deny them the rest of them your grand vision for the future of Navarra.
He turned to Sidony and offered his arm, smiling. She folded her arms in response, and his smile widened into an unsettling grin.
No.
No?
He pulled
I
his
don't know
arm.
which one.
No, I know.
Sorry.
That's just all say.
I wasn't sure if that was.
He pulled his arm away.
Well, if you prefer, I can certainly let you get back to enjoying Lord Reinhardt's captivating opinions. But someone tells me you and I have business to discuss.
My drink is gone anyway.
Reinhardt grumbled as he took his leave. Cyrus extended his arm again, and Sidony took it. The red stone in the ring Antonia gave her glinted in the crook. They walked with purpose, pushing through the crowd at a brisker pace than the meandering strolls of the other guests. Their faces lit up as they saw Cyrus approaching them. Many nodded many nodded their regards, and a few even bowed. Sidony glanced sidelong at his beaming face. He acknowledged each and every soul they passed with the knowing smile of kindred spirits sharing a secret. What did he know about them? Anything at all? Were they just potential customers or potential marks?
Are you allowed to call every noble in Navarra by their first name? Or is there something special between you and Lord Reinhardt?
Sidony asked. Cyrus chuckled as he saluted a woman with the tallest hair Sidony had ever seen.
I'm allowed to call anyone by any name I want.
He said.
If I get it wrong, no one ever corrects me. They're afraid to.
People were intimidated by Sidony for many reasons. Because she was an agent of the Inquisition. Because she was a mage no longer chained to any circle of magi. Because she was a woman far from what one would call approachable. But no one had ever been so scared that they couldn't correct her when she was wrong. This elf had power that made people who should fear nothing tremble in his presence.
We shouldn't stay out in the open like this. There are lots of eager ears around, besides mine,
he said with a wink. He steered them to an unoccupied alcove and planted himself in front of her, his back to the party, his hand against the wall, and his outstretched arm barring her from flight. Barring her from flight. To the guests outside, they would have looked like any other couple taking advantage of the alcove's privacy.
I saw you earlier at the window. You looked like you were waiting for someone.
Cyrus said.
It couldn't have been Nicholas. You looked like you could hardly wait to snap your fingers and light his pompous ass on fire.
And how would I do that?
Sidony replied as flatly as possible.
I am certain a mage as skilled in necromancy as you could figure something out. Probably something even more imaginative than flame, I'm betting.
Sidony pursed her lips. Antonia. Cyrus laughed.
I've worked with plenty of mages. A lot of you all have the same tells. There's a certain draw that you all just haven't figured out how to hide.
Have any of the mages you've worked with been Mortalitasi?
He narrowed his eyes.
Can't say I've had the pleasure, no. Not in the way I've worked with other mages. But I get an earful about them, almost daily. You've heard Nicholas. Every fool in Navarra has an opinion about the Mortalitasi. Half the people think they were sent by the Maker himself to save the kingdom from civil war. The other half will tell you all about their secret rituals and mind control experiments.
Sidney rolled her eyes.
Very interesting. But I'm looking for a particular death mage.
Cyrus raised an eyebrow and waited. Sidoni huffed.
Someone in the Grand Necropolis wrote to me. He said he made some very serious accusations against another Mortalitasi. Now he's dead. I need to know if someone is responsible for that.
And what's stopping you from marching down into their lair and interrogating every one of them until you find what you're looking for?
I think there's another bit there as well, Venom. Just you strike me as a capable woman.
Oh, the I tried part?
Oh no, you strike me as a capable woman.
Oh, I don't have that part.
Oh,
Oh, but
really? Really?
Sorry about that.
Interesting. All right,
Yeah,
then I guess we'll just continue.
Yeah.
Mine goes straight to I tried, but
Oh, damn it. Okay, well,
Huh.
damn. Digitally, it says you strike me as a capable woman.
you strike me as a careful woman.
There we go.
I tried, but
Henrik's twisted face flashed through her mind, and the words died on her tongue.
it doesn't matter. Whoever did this has to be stopped.
Stopped? From doing what?
Sidoni scoffed. She'd hoped to avoid telling him anything more than what she'd led Antonia to believe, but she needed options, and he wasn't one of them. If she played her cards right, she could tell him the truth without alerting the assassins that she was coming. And maybe, if he understood that the lives of the people who provided his employment were the ones at stake, he'd be more likely to help.
One of them, a Mortalitasi, is planning to murder a noble.
Cyrus started to say something and stopped.
Oh no, am I missing more?
No.
Oh god. Here, let me.
Oh, that's right.
maybe
look
you
real
want to
quick.
stream on Discord as well, and Jack.
I can certainly do that. Let me know if this works as well for you.
I can see it just fine.
Can you see that, Venom?
Yeah. Yeah, it's loading up right now.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, I can see it too.
Fantastic.
There we go. Planning, he asked. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Took your line, Jack.
He asked, his mouth pressed into a line and his head ticked to the side.
I think you're too late to stop them several times over.
What?
Sidoni bit out, irritation spiraling inside of her.
More nobles dead. In the past week?
Cyrus said as he crossed his arms. His jovial demeanour had faded, replaced by a stern and contemplative look. The annoyance flooding through Sidoni turned to anger. At every turn was a reminder of her failure to do her duty. She narrowed her eyes at Cyrus and snapped.
And? What proof do you have that these nobles were killed by a Mortalitasi?
None.
He replied unabashedly.
They died by
He ticked each method off on his fingers.
Hunting mishap, 2 falls, and in one poor sod's case, too much wine. Deaths like that aren't exactly uncommon in wealthy Navaran houses, and if the family believes it was an accident, the city guard won't investigate. But
He turned and looked out over the guests to where Reinhardt was spilling something from his cup as he addressed an enraptured group of partygoers.
if these accidents happen within days of each other to nobles who are notorious for speaking out against the king's Mortalitasi advisors, and the Mortalitasis keep carting off the bodies before anyone can get a good look at them, it's hard not to take notice.
He faced her again.
And when a maid shows up on your doorstep saying she's hunting a noble killing Mortalitasi, it's hard not to get suspicious.
And how are you so acquainted with the details of these deaths?
Saros laughed.
Antonia told you who I am, didn't she? What I do? There isn't much I don't know. And when I know someone is targeting my clients, I won't... Let's see.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
No, you're good. I won't sit and wait for it to happen again. Especially not when the Maker himself sends such a capable woman to help me.
Before Sidony could answer, the sound reached her. A scream. Just barely audible over the deafening sound of the party. Over and over, like someone having the life pulled from their body piece by piece. Sidony shoved Cyrus out of the mouth of the alcove. Sidony shoved Cyrus out of the mouth of the alcove and tore into the crowd. She shouldered her way past the drunk and foolish guests, stumbling around her, searching for the direction of the scream.
Mage!
Cyrus caught up to her just as she reached the landing of the grand staircase. He snatched her arm, turning her around to face him.
Was it something I said?
Stop it.
She hissed, knocking his hand away from her.
Listen.
All around them, mouths began murmuring in ears. Heads turned in all directions as others started to notice the sound. Gawkers leaned over the railings and pointed down to the floor below. She turned and hurried down the steps, across the main hall, weaving in and out of the gaps left open by the huddling guests. The screams turned into wails, bouncing from the walls of a dark corridor avoided by the guests. Sidony turned down the hall and saw her, a young, terrified maid pulling out her own hair and howling into an open door. By the time she reached her, the girl had collapsed. Sidony stepped over her crumbling body, her boots clicking on the polished marble as she peered into the room beyond. The lavishly furnished sitting room was dark and silent. There were no signs anyone had been in here except for a spluttering flame in the fireplace and the dead man face down in the middle of the floor.
Poor Nicholas is absolutely beside himself.
Sidony closed her eyes against the sun's reflection on the water and sighed as they walked past another dock.
If I were forced to choose between eating that rat over there and being considerate of Nicholas Reinhardt's feelings, I would eat the rat.
Ah, come now.
Cyrus laughed.
Have some sympathy. Someone was murdered in the man's home last night.
Exactly.
Sidony spat.
You saw the body, the state it was in.
Something had been done to it. Something that gave it the same sickly, twisted appearance as Henrik's corpse.
And Reinhardt threw me out with the rest of the gawkers when I tried to get a closer look.
She continued.
Forgive me if I cannot manage to harbor any kindness for him.
After Reinhardt had unceremoniously tossed out everyone from the party, the servants had ushered the discontented guests into the streets with the assurance that the death was merely an unfortunate bit of luck. An accident, the same the families of the other victims were desperate for everyone to believe.
He does have appearances to keep up,
Cyrus said, as if he could read her thoughts.
It will go badly for Nicholas if the most powerful people in Navarra think he allows assassins to strike under his own nose. Better for them to believe old Lord Hildebrand simply overexerted himself with that maid, and let his house deal with the scandal.
Last night, I couldn't get Reinhardt to shut up about the Mortalitasi. Now that his ego is involved, suddenly he has no interest in stopping them.
That's what these people do, Mage.
Cyrus fell into step beside her and cast her a sidelong glance.
Before long, the throne of Navarra will be free for the taking, and when every royal-blooded family from here to Cumberland thinks they have a chance at it, they'll do anything to increase their chances. Right now, being nobility in this kingdom means knowing everything that could bring down your rivals, but more importantly, it means controlling what your rivals know about you. Besides, Nicholas runs his mouth so much about the Mortalitasi, he's bound to have a target painted on his back already. That target will get a lot bigger if he starts accusing one of them of murder. Best leave him to his delusions, and let us figure out who's behind this. Starting with finding this ambitious little bastard who thinks he can get one over on my client.
The night before, Cyrus had found Sidony in the throng of partygoers as they filled out the manor. He had pulled her away into the night, away from curious ears, and made an offer. In exchange for telling her what he could learn about the Mortalitasi assassin, she would help him secure their first lead on the killer. Cyrus had a patron who had been the mistress of one of the recently slain nobles. Evidence of their affair, a journal, had fallen into the hands of the victim's servant, who was threatening to expose the scandal unless the patron paid him an unconscionable amount of gold. They had spent the morning combing the docks by the river, searching the places Cyrus had heard the upstart servant like to visit, without any luck. It was an unusually warm day for the season, and the sun hung high overhead as they sat on a low wall to rest.
I appreciate you helping me stop this assassin.
Sidony sighed.
But I am having trouble understanding how cleaning up these foolish messes for your noble pets is a valuable use of my time.
I told you.
Cyrus smiled reassuringly.
My patron has information to trade if we find the journal for her.
I understand that part. But what could she possibly know that would be of any use to us?
So far, every victim's family has insisted that their deaths were accidental, despite their questionable nature. I haven't been able to piece together whether they're saying this to avoid shame or because someone is coercing them. Either way, none of them would dare risk putting themselves out of favor with the Mortalitasi by claiming one of them is responsible. My patron promised me that once she gets the journal, she'll tell us what she knows about the circumstances around her lover's fall. She doesn't believe the official story. She doesn't think it was an accident or by her lover's own hand. I think she knows something that'll give us a better lead than just waiting for another party and using the nobles as bait.
Sidony looked out over the river. Her patience for the royal family's frivolities and squabbles was growing thin. So much so that using one of them as bait was starting to sound rather enticing.
Who is this woman, your patron? How do you know we can trust her?
Cyrus smiled again. The one that seemed to appear when he wanted her to stop asking questions.
That's not part of our deal, Mage. Just as I won't tell my patron the secrets you're after, I won't betray her trust by exposing her.
Stop calling me Mage.
Sidony snapped.
Would you like me to call you frustratingly shifty elf?
I guarantee you, I've been called worse things.
Cyrus laughed.
I know that this is all part of what you do.
Sidony continued.
But the people I usually work with have the decency to not withhold knowledge from me. This blind confidence you expect is not something that is ever asked of me. I am not enjoying it.
Ah, there he is.
Cyrus said as he looked away and gestured to a young man walking past the market stalls across the plaza. His messy black hair stuck out of the hood of his coat, completely out of place in the warm weather. Sidony scowled as he deflected her concerns. I'll be this character if he's somebody new. Oh, no, it's you. Perfect. Oh, yeah, it's yeah. He said as he stood and brushed off his pants and extended his hand to her.
I was going to suggest using your special brand of magic, but that face you're making will put the fear of the maker into the poor boy. Let's go.
They kept their distance as they followed him up the avenue. Artists and various entertainers were still hard at work, preparing and adorning the dozens of statues for the season. Their quarry weaved in and out of bustling crowds.
What are we waiting for?
Sidony asked.
He's right there.
Too many people around.
Cyrus replied.
I want him in a quieter place. Don't want to risk anyone else getting involved. The journal we're after might get snatched up in the wrong hands. Again.
Silence settled between them as they walked. Sidony collapsed her hands together and felt a foreign presence against her palm. She looked down and saw the angry red stone in the ring Antonia gave her the night before still blazing on her finger. In the chaos after Reinhardt had dismissed everyone from the party, she hadn't been able to find her.
I have to ask.
Cyrus began.
How do you know Lady Antonia?
Sidony looked up at him and sighed. He put his hands up in defense.
Can't help it. Part of the job and all.
I don't know her,
She replied.
Interesting.
The upstart servant they were tailing was no longer staring straight ahead. He looked in several directions before slipping into a side street.
This way.
Cyrus said as he pulled her into the alley closest to them.
Out the other side and catch him off guard. He'll notice us if we follow him down directly.
They picked up their pace as they made their way through the deserted passageway.
You often wear jewelry belonging to complete strangers?
Cyrus asked as he pointed to her hand.
Strangers who just so happen to be very prominent and influential necromancers?
And how are you so well acquainted with Antonia?
I don't know her personally, just the bits and pieces I've picked up through my work. She's very popular in many circles, and very well liked.
Cyrus thought for a moment.
She seemed like a lively woman when she pointed me your way last night. She was very concerned about you.
Sidony rolled her eyes.
She is a friend of someone I knew a long time ago. That is our only connection.
Your only connection, other than the fact that you're both highly skilled death mages?
Sidony shook her head.
I was supposed to be one of them. A Mortalitasi. Antonia's friend, Henrik, he took me in when I was a child, taught me necromancy, death magic, the customs and history of Navarra, little else.
Sidony frowned as she remembered her days cooped up in the necropolis, hungry to learn more about magic in the world outside, longing to see the rest of Thedas, and Henrik telling her to put those thoughts from her mind, that Navarra City itself was dangerous enough, let alone anywhere else.
Henrik and Antonia always expected me to join them. Eventually, but...
But
Cyrus asked. Sidoni's patience spilled away like a tipped-over glass.
But obviously, I didn't.
Cyrus opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Sidoni hissed.
Because I'm here, with you, being pestered by annoying questions instead of catching a Mortalitasi assassin that keeps slipping through my fingers.
Cyrus clapped his mouth shut and smiled. They fell into silence again, and soon they reached the other side of the alleyway.
wait.
Cyrus barred her way with his arm and looked around the corner, in the direction of the alleyway where their target had disappeared.
Quiet enough here.
He said, surveying the near-empty street.
If he comes this way, pull him in.
Time stretched as they waited for the servant to appear from the mouth of the other alley.
So, Henrik, what happened to him?
Stop it.
Sidoni barked.
Stop what?
I'm not one of the eager little rumor mongers you like to trade with. Is my past relevant to finding this assassin? Will it help you win the silly games you're playing with the nobility? Stop asking me.
The rest of her words fell away. Her eyes were drawn over Cyrus's shoulder to another grossly exaggerated statue some 30 paces away. Some Pentagast duke or another. Both its arms, raised in supplication, cast the street around it into shade, obscuring a motionless figure that radiated the same magic, the same cold impression of death that she had felt the night before. Before she could will her feet to walk in its direction. She felt hands clamp on her shoulders and spin her around. Cyrus hissed in her ear. It was him, the servant they'd been chasing, walking away from them on the other side of the street. Sidoni wrenched herself over Cyrus's grip and bolted towards him. The servant had just enough time to realize a determined-looking woman was racing in his direction before Sidoni thrust her hand forward. A purplish-white flash of magic narrowly missed his back as he started to run. As she darted after him, she could faintly hear Cyrus shouting and the pounding of his footsteps behind her. If he wanted her to stop, then he was about to be disappointed. She would not let another piece of his puzzle elude her. Before she could let another curse fly from her hand, the servant turned a sharp corner into a narrow alley between two storefronts. She heard a shout, Cyrus's voice close behind her. She looked over her shoulder, and he gestured for her to follow the servant before he slipped into a narrow passage a dozen paces behind. She raced into the alley. The servant was nearing the other side. Gathering as much strength as she could, she stopped and focused on his retreating form. Just as Cyrus appeared in the opening at the opposite end of the alley, she sliced her left arm in an arc in front of her. The servant screamed as the curse knocked him forward and out of the alley. His hands flew to his head, baiting away imagined monsters from the horror spell Sidoni had inflicted on him. Cyrus caught him just as he began to collapse and dragged the screaming man back into the alley, and Sidoni ran forward to meet him. The servant's face looked like Henrik's. Had when she saw his corpse, pulled wide in a look of terror.
His screaming.
Cyrus ordered as he struggled to restrain their quarry. She pulled on her magic, attempting to wipe the spell from the man's mind. She tried again and again, gritting her teeth against the energy draining from her body. But the more she tried, the louder he screamed, and the more she saw Henrik's face.
Mage, stop him!
I can't.
Sidoni growled.
It's not working.
The servant thrashed and forced his way out of Cyros's arms. The man charged at Sidony, his shrieking face inches from hers, teeth gnashing and eyes wild. Suddenly, he was yanked backward by his hair, and his screams turned to gasps. Blood poured from his side, from the spot where the knife in Cyros's hand was buried. Cyros released him, and the servant fell to the ground. Now that she could see him calm and up close, she realized he couldn't have seen more than 20 years. He couldn't have seen more than 20 years, and now his death was another she had failed to prevent.
What?
Sidony panted.
Why did you do that?
I told you to make him stop.
Cyros said, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket and wiping at his hands.
If he'd kept it up, who knows what attention we would have drawn. Especially after you decided to throw a few fistfuls of magic out in the open.
Sidony stuttered.
I was about to.
She waved her hand over the dead man, covered in his own blood.
This wasn't part of what you asked of me,
she said forcefully.
Why did you do that?
He said nothing as she watched him pull his knife from the corpse and clean it. She said nothing as he rummaged inside the servant's coat until he found the journal they were looking for. And silence stretched between them as he pushed her out of the alley, back into the sunny main street.
Wait here,
Cyros said as they stood outside the front door of an elegant apartment.
No,
Sidony said, snatching the journal from Cyros's hand.
I need to hear what this woman knows.
She crushed the book to her chest.
I need to hear it from her, not you.
Cyros shook his head.
You can't. She doesn't know you. She isn't expecting you.
He reached for the book. She stepped back, out of his grasp. Clutching the journal with one hand, she held the other forward, open and palm up.
Do you want to see for yourself what that boy saw before you cut open his ribs?
She warned. He dropped his hand and sighed.
Come on,
he said, opening the door for her.
After you,
Sidony replied. The apartment was dark, despite it being the middle of the afternoon. The expected noise from servants and visitors in an extravagant place like this was absent. No one appeared to greet them as they moved through the entryway.
Are you sure this is where we were supposed to bring the journal?
Sidony asked.
Yes.
Cyros said.
She told me to bring it here once I found it. She could be out for the afternoon, but the entire household wouldn't go with her. Something's wrong.
Sidony felt the prickle of magic ripple down her arm in response. When they crossed into the room, the magic flared when she saw the body, all shriveled limbs and colourless skin. Cyros's face fell into a concerned frown.
Well, damn,
he said, smoothing a hand through his hair.
What do you mean, damn?
Sidony said, more frantically than she would have liked. Cyros smirked.
Are you all right, mage? With your skill set, I didn't think seeing something like this would unnerve you.
Don't tell me this is who we are depending on.
And if it is?
Cyros asked before disappearing back into the front hall. Sidony glared at the corpse, at this new proof of her failure. Another witness silenced. One more step behind the killer.
I am growing tired of this assassin beating me at every turn,
she said through gritted teeth when Cyros returned to the parlour.
They haven't beat us yet,
Cyros said.
This is your chance, mage.
What are you talking about?
Sidony sneered.
No one's here. No one's here to shoo us away. No one to tip off the Mortalitasi to come and take the body. We need death magic.
Sidony peered at the body, brow furrowed.
If I do what you're suggesting, it won't be pretty.
Death magic? I wouldn't expect it to be.
She shot him a glare.
Can't you just wake it up long enough to tell us what it saw?
Cyrus offered.
That's not how it works. Getting a corpse to speak is a rare gift, even among the Mortalitasi.
To be something you can try.
Sidony regarded him for a moment. The Mortalitasi's methods weren't supposed to be known to anyone outside the Order, and the Maker only knew if she could even get this thing to get this to work. But this could be their only opportunity to study one of the victims uninterrupted.
I can call on a spirit from the Fade to possess the corpse. I've heard stories of spirits latching on to the final moments of the dead.
She paused, thinking back to the old rituals Henrik used to make her observe.
There are certain tools the Mortalitasi use to attract a spirit to a corpse. Tools that I do not have, and if I do not use the proper methods to invite a spirit into the body, it will be unpredictable. We can hope it's agreeable, but this thing will be just as likely to attack you as to answer your questions.
Don't think we have a choice right now.
Cyrus reminded her. Sidony let out a breath and closed her eyes. She focused her magic, using it to reach into the Fade, the realm beyond where spirits, demons, and departed souls reside. She searched for a spirit willing to occupy Cyrus's patron, if only for a brief moment, willing to confess her memories to them. Cyrus shouted as the fingers on the corpse's gloved hand started to flex. Sidony centered herself and pulled the spirit harder towards the dead. She was a breath away from fully waking it when she noticed the embroidery on the glove as it lifted in the air, a quill. Pain exploded in the back of her skull and everything went dark.
My wife, Cyrus, my wife.
The anxious voice lanced through the haze that was slowly lifting from Sidony's head. She willed her eyes to open, but they wouldn't.
Yes, your wife, Nicholas, and I'm sorry,
came Cyrus's voice, and the rustle of clothing as one man shoved the other.
But if you don't take your hands off me, you'll be joining her.
Now you're threatening me?
Reinhardt.
How stupid could I have been? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
How stupid could I have been?
Pretty damn stupid if you think I was the one who did this.
What would you have me believe?
Reinhardt roared.
I hired you to kill my rivals and take the Mortalitasi down with them, and now I find my wife slain by the assassins I employed, and one of the damn death mages herself.
Sidony started at the confession and forced her eyes open. The room was unfamiliar, full of well-appointed furniture, but she recognized the same polished floor, red as a drakestone, as that of the room where they had discovered the body of Cyrus's patron, Reinhardt's wife. She struggled to sit up and discovered her hands were bound behind her.
Why would he have me raise your wife if he killed her?
Her voice sounded weaker than she would have liked. The two men turned to Sidony in surprise. Reinhardt quickly recovered, and he rushed forward, an accusing finger outstretched towards her.
Because he was using you, you disgusting witch. His job was to upend the Navarran line of succession and blame it on people like you.
Reinhardt rounded on Cyrus.
And because he's a killer, that's all he knows how to do. Give him a list of targets and he won't stop there. He can't control himself.
Sidony looked to Cyrus. He didn't deny it, but from the look on his face, he was struggling with something unspoken. The right words to talk his way out of this. She looked to the ground. Her face grew hot at the idea that she had aided the very person she was sent to stop. Nicholas laughed, a biting, taunting sound.
You didn't know, did you? Who did you think he was? Who did you think you were helping?
A man who would kill a boy in broad daylight to silence him. A man with connections, with easy access to the victims and their families. A man who the most powerful people in Navarra City both feared and admired. The pain in her head was unbearable. But Sidony pushed it away and concentrated.
Was it not enough for you that I paid the debt you owed to your previous employers? That I saved you from their incessant pursuit? What else could you possibly desire?
Reinhardt asked, his eye fully on Cyros again.
Nicholas, I need you to shut up and let me explain.
Do you know what it is going to do to my standing in the court? After I've dragged myself forward, you've knocked me even further from the throne.
Their shouting was distracting, and Sidony screwed her eyes shut against the sound. She reached out with her magic, trying with everything she had to finish the spell Reinhardt had interrupted. A moment later, she felt it, a response from the room where they had found Reinhardt's wife.
Make her help you, Nicholas, if you don't quiet yourself.
She could sense it leaving the room where they had discovered it, moving down the hall towards the parlor.
No, we're done, Cyrus. If I have to throw you to the wolves along with the Mortalitasi, then I will.
It was outside the door, and Sidony beckoned it inside.
I didn't kill your wife or the other bastards you hired me to kill either. Someone else got to all of them first, Nicholas. Someone who obviously knows what you're planning. The mage and I were trying to find out who.
Cyros cried out in surprise as Nicholas's scream echoed around the room, but neither of the men managed to drown out the sickening crunch of nails and teeth sinking into flesh. Sidony's eyes flew open, just in time to see the corpse of Reinhardt's wife attack her husband. Lord Reinhardt howled in pain and confusion, his arms uselessly pushing at her rabid form, blood pouring from every gash in his dead wife opened upon his body. Cyros' knife flew into his hand, and he quickly backed into the wall. Reinhardt's screams disappeared almost as soon as they began. His lifeless body crumpled, and the former Lady Reinhardt spun towards Cyros. His eyes darted to Sidony. Sidony.
Tell me.
Sidony pulled herself up uneasily.
How many dead nobles did you hope to lay at the Mortalitasi's feet? At my feet? How many other necromancers did you plan to use? It must have felt like the Maker himself smiled upon you last night, when he put 2 death mages right in your way.
Lady Reinhardt took a step forward.
Telling the truth, mage, I didn't do this.
He gestured towards the walking corpse.
Any of it.
His knuckles turned white around the hilt of his knife.
But the Maker is smiling on me now. I was looking for an assassin.
Sidony said. She jerked her head toward Lady Reinhardt's corpse, and it collapsed in a heap on the floor. Purplish white fire erupted in Sidony's open palm.
And I found one.
Mage, stop!
Cyros stepped away from the wall and rushed towards her.
My name is not Mage.
She thrust her arm forward, tearing away her bonds, flinging the siphoning spell and hitting him square in the chest. The skin on his extremities turned dark purple, then black, as the curse drained the very life from his body. She waited until night had completely fallen before she left the apartment. None of the staff ever returned, so she sat inside with the corpses until she was sure she could. It's moonless autumn night. She slipped out the back door without notice, except for the shadowy figure, still as death, its necrotic aura chilling her to the bone, waiting at the end of the street, watching. I'm going to have an interesting report for Pentagast, she thought, as she turned and walked the opposite way. Henrik's body had been moved to the tomb that had waited for him since he joined the Mortalitassi Order. Despite the horrific appearance of his mangled corpse, he seemed almost comfortable in the tableau the other death mages had arranged for him, sitting at a desk surrounded by books on necromancy, alone. He had been wrong about a Mortalitassi planning to assassinate the nobles, another victim of Cyros's network of well-placed rumours and gossip, and she resented him for using that mistake to drag her back to the city that she hated, to protect people that she despised. But buried deep below the resentment, she knew that he had called on her for help because he still trusted her, after all this time, even after she abandoned him. And she had failed to protect him, even after the many years he had kept her hidden away from the vicious games the rest of Navarra was playing outside the halls of the necropolis. She had begrudged his insistence that she join the Mortalitassi, hated his resistance to learning anything about the world outside Navarra City, but she never wanted this for him. Before she returned to the Inquisition and did everything in her power to never see Navarra City again, the least she could do was ensure he had reached his resting place. When she returned to the necropolis, she hadn't expected the other Mortalitassi to accept her apology for her previous behaviour, but she was grateful when they did. To her surprise, one of the death mages, an older man with silver hair and a moustache, is that Emmerich? Maybe? Probably not. Does he have a moustache? Had happily escorted her to Henrik's tomb.
He does have a mustache.
Thank you.
I was thinking it was him too. I heard you came to say goodbye to dear Henrik.
A bright voice rang out behind her.
No.
Sidony said, turning to face Antonia as she entered the tomb.
I am just making sure he's where he wanted to be.
Oh.
The corner of Antonia's lips quirked upward.
For a moment, I thought there might actually be some warm, sentimental feelings in there.
Antonia pointed to the centre of Sidony's chest. Sidony hummed a response. She would soon be 3 of the woman's jibes.
Since you're leaving us again, I take it Cyros helped you find what you were looking for?
Antonia asked.
He did.
Sidony replied. As far as you know. Antonia smiled.
You did good work.
Sidony raised a brow.
Killing Lord Reinhardt and his pet assassin.
Antonia smiled.
They would have brought chaos upon the kingdom if they had been allowed to see their plan through.
Sidony clenched her jaw.
Forgive me.
She began.
But why did you say you knew about Reinhardt and Cyros? That is information I have not even reported to the Inquisition yet.
Antonia carried on as if Sidony had never spoken.
These nobles, responsible for guiding the country, and this is the example they set? To grow so desperate for power that they resort to climbing over each other's corpses to reach the throne. So many people tell me they're ready for change, for the kingdom to be taken in a new direction, without the uncertainty of the old royal blood and their constant struggles for control. With the line of succession in such disarray, perhaps it's time for the Mortalitassi to intervene.
A stabbing cold ripped through Sidony, a chill that had nothing to do with her surroundings.
I told you before, Sidony. The people of Navarra, noble and common, know our worth. They see the value in counsel given by a Mortalitassi. Why, I could tell them the Maker himself willed their daughter to jump from a window, and they would believe me. They would find peace in that. I could say that there's no point in examining the crate of wine that killed their brother for poison, and they would trust in my wisdom.
She pointed a finger toward Henrik.
If I say this doddering old recluse is dead because he's grown too fond of drinking during his experiments, no one will question me.
She turned back to Sidony.
And when I send a bitter, unpleasant girl to get a two-bit assassin and his upstart master out of my way, she will take them down for me. She will destroy them without even a second thought, and show the rest of Navarra just how far the nobility is willing to go for power.
The chill seeped deeper into Sidony's bones. The weight of Antonia's words hung heavy in the silence. A tranquil smile illuminated Antonia's face, and her eyes glanced to Sidony's hand.
Oh!
She exclaimed.
My ring! You still have it.
Her hand extended towards Sidony. Eyes never leaving Antonia's, Sidony pulled the trinket from her finger. As she dropped the ring into her waiting palm, she felt it, the waves of death and decay, of a cold void, emanating from the dark fingers she'd come to recognize, standing in the corner.
You know,
Antonia said, following Sidony's gaze to the corpse.
When I learned that Henrik had sent for you, I was furious. The last thing I needed was a thorn in my side in the form of a churlish little deserter who abandoned the Mortalitasi. But you turned out to be useful after all,
She said with the same calm smile. Antonia retreated from the tomb, the corpse that had haunted Sidony at every turn, cataloguing her every move, dutifully following its mistress into the dark. Alone in the tomb, Sidony froze under the watch of Henrik's lifeless body, the man who had taught her everything she knew, whom she had rebelled against for years, stared vacantly at her from his resting place. Cyrus had used her. Even he had never gotten the opportunity to pin the deaths of the nobles on her. He had still managed to run her ragged across Navarra City, chasing a killer who was sabotaging his work and tarnishing his reputation. Rage flared within her as she thought of killing Cyrus and Nicholas. She thought she'd been preventing a political catastrophe on behalf of the Inquisition, but she had been nothing more than Antonia's pawn. Even Pentagast, in her own way, had used Sidony. Did it matter to her that Sidony wanted nothing to do with the fate of her home country? The Inquisitor does not want to see that happen to Navarra. Or did it only matter that the Inquisitor was pleased? Ooh. She met Henrik's blank, twisted expression. He had never been what she wanted, or even what she thought she needed. For most of her life, he had felt like a jailer instead of a father, or even a teacher. He had insisted she stay hidden away from the world, discouraged her from learning anything outside the lessons of death magic. But he had never used her, and now she'd give anything to hear what he had to say. She could go to the other Mortalitasi, tell them what Antonia had done, but her standing with them was still precarious at best. It would be her word against that of a prominent Mortalitasi, one who could accuse any agent of the Inquisition of murdering a Navarran lord without question. A situation Antonia would no doubt use to her benefit. And if Sidony removed Antonia from her own game, whose pawn would she become then? Who would be waiting in the wings to fill Antonia's place? In Navarra, there would always be another waiting to climb over the ones who fell. The silence of Henrik's tomb was suffocating, as the dead man's stare became unbearable. It didn't matter if anyone else benefited from what happened to Antonia. Sidony couldn't take failing him again. The statues came alive that night. Countless points of light from candles at their bases and in the hands of revelers illuminated every crevice in every stone face, every wrinkle in the fabric draped around the stone bodies, every flower scattered at their feet. The autumn pageant all of Navarra City had been preparing for was here. The autumn pageant all of Navarra City had been preparing for was here, and every one of the city's residents filled the streets with laughter and dancing. The crowds were perfect for concealing Sidony as she walked the boulevard, but they made it almost impossible to find who she was looking for. But predictably, the brassy-haired, bright-faced death mage shone like a beacon, even among the masses. She was surrounded by admirers looking for counsel, for guidance, for just a smile, all of which Antonia freely gave. Sidony watched as the little girl she had given a stack of gold to approached Antonia. The letter Sidony had given her outstretched in her little hand. Antonia beamed, and when she took it, the girl ran in the opposite direction. The smile faded as Antonia read the crumpled parchment. What was she feeling as she read the words from Henrik's hand? The hand Sidony had easily reawakened for this purpose. Was it confusion? Fear? For the first time, Sidony saw Antonia's face darken. She excused herself from her enchanted audience and looked around, but Sidony's face effortlessly blended into the crowd. Antonia turned and disappeared between two statues standing guard at the mouth of an abandoned back street, and Sidony followed. The darkness in the alleyway would mask the two mages from outside eyes, and the noise of the crowds would drown out Antonia's screams. And in the time it would take for someone to discover the Mortalitatis body, Sidony would be too far from Navarra City to hear their screams. They had met in an alley, and in an alley they would part. Round of applause for all of you. You were absolutely fantastic with the voices. Oh my goodness, chat has been gushing throughout this constantly. Thoughts on Murder by Death Mages?
Oh,
I
man.
kind of want to play as a Mortalitasi now.
Yes!
Wow.
Hell yes.
I have some when you're ready.
Oh.
Mm.
I have notes,
I
but
have notes too.
we can get some whenever.
Chat is just gushing. Yeah, chat was gushing over every single one of you. You all did fantastic. Like,
Aw, thank
beautiful, beautifully done, very well executed. All of your voices together, amalgamating, it was fantastic. More like Murder by Good Voices.
I love that.
I really enjoyed reading with all of you. I really liked the, I guess you would say, chemistry.
The chemistry.
Is that the term?
Yeah, the
The
chemistry.
chemistry,
Yeah.
Country.
Y'all
absolutely.
did.
Yeah, I was a
Pretty
lot
great.
more nervous than I needed to be.
Yeah.
I was like, my English is kind of like flee the code. There's not like I'm just gonna start speaking in Swedish and Dutch because you know.
No, you were fantastic. Each of you were fantastic. Yeah, chat. I am in love with all of you. That's what chat said.
I loved your accent for Reinhardt. It really pulled
Yes.
through, and that was really
Yes.
Oh,
It
thank
did.
you.
It
And-
did.
It was
Oh
smooth.
my goodness, Venom, Zeros was terrifying suave. I was
Yes!
like, yeah, man,
Yes!
everybody.
Yes.
Such an
I
extra
love
dimension
the
to him.
heroes.
Yes, such
Yes.
a brilliant
Okay.
dimension to him. Emily
I
Venom,
started.
wasn't
have you-
really sure if he was a suave guy, but
I mean, yeah.
No,
went for it.
I tried to make Reinhardt sound a bit pompous, but
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah, you did great with that.
Perfect.
The emotion was perfect too.
It
You nailed
was.
it every single
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And Venom, have you thought about going into radio? Because you have
Yeah.
a
yeah,
voice.
I was
Yes,
about to
you
he
do.
literally
You
has a
do.
radio
Sounds like an
voice.
announcer.
Yeah.
Thought about it here and there.
Well, I think you should
You
think
should.
more about it.
Yeah.
Also, consider maybe voice acting more.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Spot
I did it on the side for like a tiny bit,
Oh yeah.
but you know, having 3 kids doesn't leave much spare time. Maybe one day though.
Hell yeah. No.
One day I'll get back to it.
Fantastic. I mean, I think I've got you lined up for a great Carter dwarf, honestly. Already eyeing you up for a dwarf. I think
I'm
I'm
in.
perfect. Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I'd love to do this again if there's a,
Yes,
There's a
yes,
lot of
honestly,
stuff.
yes. Honestly, I will be putting
if
up
there's
next
a
week.
role.
There is still, I think, is this the 9th or the 8th, 6th? Which way? Give me a second. There's still 8 or 7 more stories. How many weeks is it until the Veilguard? 8 weeks?
Oh my
9 weeks?
No,
goodness.
God.
Yeah, about 8 weeks.
He's a
There's 8 more
Give
stories.
or
oh,
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm probably going to do the 2 last ones in one go. And everybody knows
Mm.
the last one is such a freaking exciting one anyway.
it is.
So I'll be
I
doing
have
that
thoughts.
before
Yes.
the game comes out. But
I'm
yeah.
that one.
Yeah. Also, we need to mention Antonia by Waxy. Freaking beautifully done.
Yes.
The
It was
emotion.
great.
Ah,
Yeah.
the manicness I
I-
loved.
The
Fantastic.
first time I read, because like this is the first time I'm reading any of these stories, so I read it for the first time a couple days ago,
Yeah.
and I was just like,
Damn.
this is a lady who can blend into any social circle, so I wanted to go with
Mhm.
almost a valley girl, like, hey,
Yeah.
what's up? You know, down to be more like elitist. That was fun.
elitist Barbie girl. I like it.
Yes, I
Right.
totally wanted her to be a Barbie
Yes,
girl.
Yes.
I love it.
And then, last but not least, Emily, your flipping
Yes.
Sidony, sarcastic, fantastic, hit every
So
single
good.
point of emotion. Brilliant.
Yeah.
It
So
was great.
dry.
Thank
So dry. Spot on.
The
It was-
perfect
it was
foil
great.
to Cyrus.
Just the deadpanness of
The-
it all was like nice.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I was
it was
just
perfect.
It helps that I'm literally like I am nursing black tea right now. I'm trying to keep myself awake.
I did get myself a glass of wine right before I did Reinhardt, so
Oh,
Perfect.
spot on. Spot on.
Yes.
the mood, you know.
Oh, man. I need to see what other stories are coming up to prepare for, particularly. Next week is Streets of Manrathus, which is Nev Gallus. How do you prepare for Nev?
Ooh, that is.
Coffee, I assume, black
Oh,
coffee.
yes.
And then, like, going down a rabbit hole of investigations and yeah. Who knows?
So, real quick, I know, like, since this is my first time going through, you know, reading the stories with all y'all, so far, and this week too, I've noticed a theme with every story that I kind of want to, like, talk about a little
Please
bit.
do. Yeah.
So, I've noticed that every single one of the stories, the protagonist who we're following, you know, they're chasing after a monster or, you know, someone standing in their way, but every single one of them, their story arc is pulling some of that monster into themselves in order to defeat it. And same again here with Sidony pulling the death mage into herself, killing multiple people. She was the one, the death mage that murdered everybody.
Yeah.
So, like, again, over and over again, it's the theme of, like, taking what you're trying to defeat into yourself in order to defeat it. And whether that's on, like, the now I understand, now I accept it, like, the one with the paintings and the frescoes and like callback, yeah. Whether it's like callback where you're accepting that horrible darkness and then moving past it, or whether it's more like this one where you're bringing the darkness into yourself in order to truly like emulate it.
For
It's
sure.
all very fascinating, and that's a theme that I've seen in every single one of the stories.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see how that translates in the future ones going forward, if that's still the theme.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, honestly, I mean, even looking at the next one before we getting too far ahead of ourselves, but I think that parts of Streets of Manrathus does continue that too, of facing, to some extent, monsters, demons, but also the inner turmoil of yourself too, in some regard.
Beautiful.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of what's after that one. It's Wigmaker Job, which is, well, yeah, it's Lucanus facing against the Venatori in a similar regard, but also him being having comparisons to a demon, and now we, you know, kind of seeing gameplay of him. It's like, what's going on there? What's happened to you since that story, or even before that story? We don't know. But yeah.
Also, he has grown a beard, so that.
Yeah. Also true.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
I just love that they're drawing on this storyline, which is also so central to each and every one of, you know, the main games. You have to corrupt yourself a little bit in order to really accept the things that are going on, and that's always
Absolutely.
been just to go off on a little tangent.
No, go for
That's
it.
always been the main thing that's drawn me to the Dragon Age games. Like, you know, I found them during a really hard place in my life, and always have taught me that, you know, you can be so much more than what you think you are. And like, it sounds silly to say that, you know, a game taught me how I want to be and how I want to be like treated, but it's true. It's true. So in my own journeys and like all these stories of like, you know, the Wardens and like Fenris and Cullen and so many other characters, they've had to really, I don't know, they've just really explored these stories. And it's really a good mirror of a lot of people who have struggled with like mental health or
Absolutely.
like PTSD, like me.
Absolutely.
Just accepting that the darkness is part of yourself and part of your story, no matter what.
But you can overcome it.
Yeah, once you accept it, you can overcome it.
Absolutely.
And that's just such a glorious thing to see in repeated throughout all these stories, because it's so important to me.
And that's the thing, like, it's I said this wrong yesterday and people really corrected me well, but it's that relatable aspect, but in terms of it's not just black and white. These characters aren't just black and white. I'm not saying you can relate to the idea of wanting to commit mass genocide of Solas, but you can relate to the ideas behind these characters that is so put forward, and it's the idea that nothing is black and white. And that's one of the reasons, and it's a tangent, one of the reasons that this community winds me up a lot is I like that character. You can't like that character. Why do you like that character? And getting into, what's the word? Not even drama, but like complete, there's a word for it. Just complete absolute...
Nitty-gritty.
Like getting into arguments over characters that you have different preferences to.
Very unnecessary arguments as well. It's like, why can we not
the
just
games
accept
teach
each other's
the games
favorite
teach you
characters?
that it's okay if you like these characters for different reasons. We're supposed to all like them for different reasons. It's okay if you like Anders and I don't. And then it's like, we all create drama out of that, but it's like, no, the games are all about embracing these characters, who they are authentically, and how that can help you embrace your authentic self. We are supposed to like them all.
Yeah.
It's discourse. Thank you, Des. That's
discourse, yeah.
discourse. We get into discourse about, like, you can't like Solas, you can't like Anders. Oh, who likes that character? Don't you know that character's XYZ? That's the reason. There are underlying reasons behind them why we all like them differently. And it's brilliant that we have a community that can kind of work together, understand the nuances of these characters. You don't have to like them all, but to like understand them and be like, oh, I really appreciate that you like that character for that reason, and the understandings of that character and the reasons why they are. I appreciate that, and that's the beauty of these characters, and that's one part that annoys me of the fandom, because it's so contrasting to what the games and the writers are doing. And yeah.
I feel it's like a lot like Friends. Like you can't be friends with everybody, but you can still respect people.
Yeah.
Like just because you don't like, okay, you and me don't click, I don't want to be a friend, but I'm not gonna fucking murder you just because you're not my friend.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna be like if one of my friends is friends with that person, I'm not gonna be like, why, fuck you.
Exactly.
Like,
That's
so stupid.
We don't get
it's
on,
so
that's fine.
stupid.
We just, we can understand that. It's fine. The caster put it really well. She put, it's like how Jack loves Ogren and nobody else does.
Wait, really?
Like Sebastian. Nobody likes Sebastian.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm with you, Jack. I have a special place in my
Everybody,
heart.
can we just not have a circle of kumbaya with the nobody likes Sebastian?
Oh, no.
Sebastian.
I do like
Oh,
Sebastian.
I just love it though, because like video games are, you know, an art form, an art
Exactly,
medium,
yeah.
and everybody interacts with art differently, even at different points in their life. Like I played Inquisition, you know, a year after it came out, and the person that I am now, going back and replaying everything, I see it entirely differently because I'm an entirely different person now. So just, you can never take any one like viewpoint, because art is entirely subjective.
Absolutely. And that's why we need to have more of a multifaceted fandom who approaches it that way, as opposed to an immature, oh, well, you can't, it needs to be more multifaceted, more mature, more nurtured, because it's okay if your opinions change. But no, for sure. Going back to the original point of these characters and their inner turmoil and kind of not just being black and white, like Sidony is like she's so full of venom, but it's brilliant that she is like the way she is, and how kind of sarcastic, and how that brings across that dry element to her. But then it's all completely understandable, the reasons that she's gone through, the fact that she's felt used her entire life, and the only person who didn't use her is dead, and she's on a quest because of him, and she can't even say goodbye to him, and even him treated her like a teacher or less like a father, and it just it brings all that stuff back to full circle.
Yeah, and it's like she has put walls up, but like behind the scenes you can still see like vulnerability, and that is so nice. Like
exactly.
Like it's like a person, you know.
Exactly.
That's why Cassandra recruited her to do this mission in the first place. Like Cassandra saw herself in Sidony and was like, "I know exactly what you're gonna do, girl. You do it. I see you."
Yeah, it's true.
Yes.
It's true. Shall we
Yeah,
get
I mean,
to
in terms of
you go.
In terms of what how like Dragon Age impacts me, like I got introduced to BioWare with Mass Effect. I'm sure you could tell by my N7 head picture on my face that Mass Effect is like my all-time favorite series. But what's so great about Dragon Age is that in Mass Effect, Commander Shepard's already it's already super well known. He's already like this, they're already this hero, and that they just they'll obviously become more of a hero over time. But with Dragon Age, what I loved about Origins was that regardless of which origin you picked, you weren't the archetype of the hero, right? You were just someone living in this world, and it was just beautiful to me that all 6 of those origins, regardless of their race, regardless of their background, where they started, that they can anyone can be what they need to be or want to be.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
I started I also started Dragon Age, especially Inquisition, when I was in a very bad place. And I started the Soulless romance, and that was probably not the best romance to start off. when not feeling too. I was sitting up playing this game at like 6 a.m. in the morning because I couldn't sleep because I was just feeling down in the dumps, and then he fucking broke up with me, and I was like, well, fuck my life, I guess.
So funny.
Make it worse. Oh no.
I love it because I did my first Soulless romance about like 8 years ago. Back when I was really starting to realize the red flags of people in real life, and so Soulless dumped me and then became the Dread Wolf, and I was like, "You stupid bitch! I can't believe it!" I was so mad, hated him for years, and now I'm redoing my Soulless romance, and I'm like, "Aw. He's just a baby girl.
He's just this pathetic wet dog, and he needs a hug."
He's just a dumb little squishy Eggman. And so, like, I love how I've completely gone through an entire life's journey, and it all comes back to the egg.
Man, I thought it was gonna be a cute, like nerdy, like cozy romance. Nope.
Yeah. Hopefully Emmerich is going to be like that, right?
Bro, look, I really want to romance Emmerich, but now I'm like, what if this is going to happen again? What if that, like, the one I romance is going to betray me and be like, great!
Oh, no.
This is amazing.
What if every single one of them betrays us at some point?
That's a good point.
I said before, I think it would be cool if they did the friendship thing, like the one that you have least
approval with, so anybody, which makes it dynamic for every kind of player, which is an ultimate plot twist.
I think it would be fun. It would just turn into a big game of Clue, and I'm here for it.
It would. Yeah.
All of them feel a bit, like the Mortalitati, especially with this story.
Yeah.
Like,
there's reasons for everybody. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, this is like, okay, Navaran political intrigue. The Navarans trying to take. I mean, I don't get that vibe of Emmerich, but still, you never know. And
you never know. I didn't get that vibe of like Anders first either, but
True. You have reasons for everybody. Besides, I would say Harding, but I don't even want to put that thought into existence. But I mean, hey.
She I'm not gonna say the spoiler because I was quite sad when I read it, but something happens with Harding, and it's
shit.
I don't know.
Shit.
Mm.
What
I
is
big shit.
ooh, could that give her
I
a
can't
reason
decide.
to want to betray?
I can't
I mean,
decide
could be.
who is gonna be my favorite, who's gonna be my romance. The more info we find out, the more I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna play my character as a bisexual, and he's just gonna fall for whoever I vibe with the
Yeah,
most.
that's the best
Yeah.
way
I
to do it.
can't.
That is the best way to
Like,
do
I
it.
have my eyes set on Emmerich, Belara, and Tash at the moment, but, like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
I
better to
didn't-
just embrace the game as opposed to having your mindset now anyway. I mean,
Yeah,
Nev
yeah.
swayed me, but still, Balara's looking really cute. Tash,
Mm.
I mean, you know, we'll
Hello,
Yeah.
mommy.
Like, I really like Davrin, because just the warden stuff. Davrin seems super interesting. I love Ike Amity. I love the
Yeah.
writers that like
Mhm.
wrote all of Davrin's stuff. So I know he's gonna be great.
Yeah.
But also, Nev.
Nev!
Yes.
Yes!
But the thing is, like, I didn't think I would romance Solus in Inquisition either. Like, I was starting
Yeah.
as on a stream, and I were like, oh, romance the Iron Bull, and I was like, okay, that's sure, why not? Because they were like, that's a fun thing to do on stream, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Yeah.
And then I did that, and then I met Solus, and I was like, oh no, he's a nerd and he's cute.
Yep, that's gonna be me and Nev. Like, I
Yeah.
know I'm gonna be like, she's
So
smart,
that is-
she's
Yeah.
crafty,
Yeah.
she's kind-hearted, her voice is amazing,
Oh,
she
yeah.
looks incredible. Like, I don't know how I'm not gonna romance her when I was so set on Davrin, but now they're just gonna have to get into a fist fight over me.
Yeah. You know, that's why there's this wonderful thing called multiple playthroughs.
Yeah, it's true.
But the magic of the first playthrough.
And then you just have to wait and like until they have the polyamory thing like mod, and then you just here you go, poly.
So returning to Murder by Death Mages, Emily, I believe you wrote some notes.
Oh yes.
I do
Please
indeed have
share.
some notes.
Ooh, hit us with the notes.
There's actually in the first page some, I'm not sure if we already knew this about Navarra or not, but some world building that I'm guessing, obviously, Sidony is sort of narrating this in her head. But she talks about how the nobles, like, they waste all this money on making their ancestors, I'm guessing, remains, corpses, skeletons, better dressed than their rivals' ancestors' skeletons.
Yeah.
Are they just out on
Barbie.
display and like
Yeah.
in their windows or something? Just with that's
I was
crazy to think
confused
about.
by that
Yeah.
too, because like
Mhm.
I thought that all of the corpses got possessed by spirits, but Henrik is just sitting in a tableau, just hanging out. So like, do they
Yeah.
preserve some of them and let
So it's
some of the others get possessed? Like, how
it's-
do they determine that?
I feel like if one of the spirits comes along, they just like instead of like trying to get it into the physical world just normally, which like makes them turn into like a demon or shit. They're like,
Yeah.
no, look here, there's a
It's-
fresh corpse here.
it's definitely interesting because, like, yeah, that in the necropolis we know that it's mainly the elite Navaran, but even here it's the elite Navaran in the various city. So like, is the Grand Necropolis reserved for the utmost of elite? Like in Down Among the Dead Men, we had Lord Penric Khan, but
Yeah.
still, like, this is still Navaran elite as well. So yeah, it's interesting how they decide between, as what does it say here, the heroic triumphs of their bloodline. Maybe it's still nobility. So it's interesting. Yeah, no, it's a good point to make for sure, because they're still nobles. Maybe not
Maybe
as
it is-
noble or not as revered, but who knows?
Yeah, maybe it is what Tiny said. Maybe it's just like if there's a spirit that needs to come through or like something, they're like, oh, here you go, here's your body.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like not they just don't change into demons all of a sudden.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like, you know, just wandering along, happy and just like, ooh, I have a body now. Like,
Yeah. It is funny though to imagine them just having rivalry over the best dressed dead, and they put so much wealth into that.
It reminds me of a scene. Have any of you or chat watched The Great? It's with
I want to. It's
great.
well, that's not
Celebrity
Ellie Fanning.
Ellie Fanning, yeah.
and Nicholas Hoult, and it's about Catherine the Great, and it's hilarious. Oh my god, that got me through the pandemic.
Oh, yeah?
Anyway,
Oh no, I wanted to see that. I have not yet. I have seen like
okay.
snippets of it on like TikTok and shit.
Well, Peter, Emperor Peter, he keeps his mother preserved, his
Yeah.
dead mother preserved,
Yeah.
in this kind of like giant glass box, and she is dressed to the nine, but it's just a
Oh, yeah.
corpse.
Oh, wow.
And
Snow White.
she has the whole dress, all the jewelry, everything. That's what I'm thinking of when I
Yeah,
read that
yeah.
first page about how the
Yeah.
nobles dress up their dead, and they're meant to be seen, so they just hanging around like ornaments. There's one holding a candlestick. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. They put them
Yeah.
to work.
Fucking Christmas tree.
Oh,
Decorate them
yeah.
for the different holidays.
Yeah.
You just dress them up, put them in the attic when they're done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Bring him again next year.
My mom.
That is some fucked up Christmas tree, and like,
Bring
like
old.
this is my
yeah.
aunt.
Yeah.
Take my great.
Oh, we're gonna put Jenny away for a week though. She'll come back next season.
She is out of season.
She's getting
She's
a
more
bit
of a Halloween
rustic.
decoration.
Yeah, yeah. She's getting a bit rustic. We need to wax her inner
She
thigh a
jingles
bit
when
more.
you shake her.
What?
No, hey,
She
what the
jingles when you shake her.
Jiggle, jiggle.
God.
Or like
Sounds like the fucking Markiplier meme. Jiggle, jiggle, jiggle.
Or if there was a spirit possessing them, it's just like a slow crone from a spirit just withering away after all these years. Oh man.
I did have a couple questions too. Moonlight, did you have more questions? Because looking back, I did have 2 more sections that I was like, what's happening there?
I do have a question/suggestion, and then I have some other notes that are not really questions, but also in the same theme of suggestions. So, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I have the book, but on page 224, when Sidony hit the kid with the like curse, right, or the horror curse, why couldn't she stop it? Why couldn't she like reverse it?
Is
And
it
it just
Antonia's
seemed like
ring?
the energy.
I think it's Antonia's ring.
No.
Or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it might be the ring.
Well,
Yeah.
Because like I assumed
Actually-
that the ring was connected to the corpse who was following her, and like that was the reason why she had the ring, and like those were connected. But like
I thought it
Um,
was like a
I'm-
spy ring, like the one like
Yeah.
like the sending crystal that like Dorian gives you. Something like that.
I thought it was a tracking ring, so Antonia always knew where she was.
Mm,
Yeah.
I thought it commanded.
She
the
could be one
corpse.
step ahead of her.
I feel
Yeah.
like the because she was like panicked and running after him. I feel like it was like she wasn't like in a right mindset to make it
Yeah,
stop.
I couldn't figure out if it was like because of the corpse thing, or if it was just Sidony just losing control of her own magic.
It seems like it was a mental block. That's how I took
Yeah.
it, because she talks about how she sees Henrik's face in her mind.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Like there's something like she just
You're
can't
right. You're right. Yeah.
concentrate
Henrik
on the
was
spell.
Yeah, making that same horrified face. So now she's seeing it and she's like, oh
Right.
god.
Because it's I
and
feel
so-
like it's a lot easier to cast the spell because emotions are involved. And then she
Yes,
casts it,
yeah.
but you need to concentrate to like
Yeah, for
remove
sure.
it.
And if she's
and
seeing Henrik,
yeah.
it's gonna
it's gonna fuck up her concentration.
Yeah.
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 Cool. And then the other question, it's kind of, I like to think I have pretty good reading comprehension. So, but I still don't quite understand why was Antonia going out and committing the murders ahead of the assassin? Like, was it like a Venn diagram of people that she was going to murder, and then a Venn diagram of people that Syros was going to murder, and they just had some overlapping people? Or was like she going through and trying to murder all of these people to pin it on him when he already was gonna kill them? Like, I understand her plan, but like, why was she actually murdering people?
I don't know if she did. Did she do it? Because
Yeah,
it
she did
doesn't-
it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It was Antonia all along.
Like, a mage did it with the death magic, and it was her corpse guy that like went and killed, the other people. But like, I don't truly understand why she was assassinating.
basically a spirit that's like because the corpse dude
mean-
that just that follows her around feels a lot like a spirit because he just up and disappeared all of a sudden.
She goes into that long monologue at the
Mhm.
end.
Where she's talking
Basically,
about, okay,
like-
so I want to reveal the lengths that the nobles
Yeah.
are going to in order to make them trust the Mortalitasi. Okay, that makes all sense. And then he was going to pin it all on the Mortalitasi, you know, so that he could rise up the ranks. That makes sense. But then why was she going ahead of him and murdering these people when Syros is like, no, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. Someone else was killing them. That was her, but like, why was that part of her plan? She didn't need to do that. So am I just missing something really obvious?
Maybe for Sidony to kill
She wanted
Cyrus.
she wanted Sidony to kill Cyrus and Reinhardt to have that confrontation of wait,
yeah.
you didn't kill him, but then he
Okay,
saw them
Sidoni's gonna keep
walk
him out of the
in.
way for me.
Yeah.
But because
like,
it's like if she's gonna kill someone, she can just pin it on Sidony because who the fuck is gonna believe her? Because she left.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Mm.
But like,
It's
why
just-
murder the people at the party in the first place? Like, were they just like getting close to Sidony and like under? I don't. I'm missing something. Something isn't clicking for me.
She actually talks about her motivations when Sidony first meets her, where she talks about, because it seems like when Sidony talks to her and how she's like no longer in the necropolis isolated, she's out with people, she's
Yeah,
more
she wants them to trust her.
friendly,
she wants
she's
them to trust
social.
her.
Yeah.
She talks about how she wanted to know these people before they died, and then she ends it with, I want to know how they died.
Yes.
So it seems like to me that she wanted to kill them because she just wants that feeling. Like she's almost kind of like sick in her mind where she doesn't want to just take care of the after effects. She wants to be the effect.
Yeah.
And I feel
That
also
makes
it's a lot like if you learn about a person, like if you learn about a person and the person, like for example, you learn to know all these people and this noble that you don't want around anymore, he happens to have diabetes. Oh no, I slipped him a little bit more insulin and now he's dead, kind of thing.
And now
So I
he's
feel
the
like
perfect
that's
target for me.
yeah. So I feel like she's getting to know people to know the best way to kill them.
Or
Yeah,
she does.
probably.
There's that line where she's like, "I want them to know I'm not just interested in getting my hands on their corpses." So it's like, I want to know the people that they are in life and in death.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
Also money, probably.
I mean, she gives me the impression that she's someone that wants to watch as they die. Kind of like how a cat
That's a
plays with
weird
its food, kills it.
Literally, that makes a lot more sense to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the impression I got. I mean, those are the bad vibes.
I just couldn't
was
figure
getting.
out like the political maneuvering of her actually killing the people that I was like, what? Why is she doing that instead of just letting Syros do that? But it makes a lot more sense. She wants that control.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. She just seems like a psychopath, and maybe I mean, and also she killed Henrik too. Maybe he was her first victim. We don't know.
We don't. Yeah, it's true
And-
because that started the entire plot.
Like,
And they were supposed to be friends.
Yeah, and she even still refers to him as that. She's like, "Dear Henrik, our good friend Henrik," even while she's giving her big monologue. So I think she really is crazy and thinks that I am going. Oh, maybe it's more like a rearing cattle kind of thing for her.
Or maybe she just truly is.
I think I'm traumatizing Kitty.
I want to know what the note particularly said that made her. The letter Sidony had given in her hand, Antonia beamed, and when she took it, the girl ran in the opposite direction. The smile faded as she read the crumpled parchment. What was she?
I want to know what the note said. Yeah.
What was she feeling as she read the words from Henrik's hand? The hand Sidony had easily reawakened for this purpose. Was it confusion, fear? Sidony reawakened Henrik. So did she reawaken Henrik to write a note to Antonia and then then put him back to sleep? Is that true?
I think that's what it is. I want to know if it was a note that like Sidony wanted to say, or if it was like, "Hey Henrik, here's your time to write your confession," and it was like Henrik's confession of what happened to him.
Yeah,
you killed me.
like,
Meet me in the
do
alley
we
where
know
you
how
met
he
Sidony or something. Well, we assume Antonia. So it's like, so she awakened Henrik, wrote a note. Hence why she's so surprised at the note, and it's like, oh shit. meet me in the alleyway where you met Sidony or whatever, and then they both go in the alley and she kills her. But it's like, okay.
Yeah,
That-
but
that's
so
so
we don't know
quick
how
to-
Henrik died, so it's
Yeah.
in the way, because Henrik would obviously protect Sidony, even though he was like not a father figure. I feel like still you would like protect
Do we
someone like
also
that.
do we also know if Henrik reached out for help before or after he died?
Oh, we don't. What did the original note say? Good question, Emily. Let's have a look.
But
And
yeah,
or did he know it was coming if he was alive?
I feel like he might have written out how he died, and that incriminates, Antonia a lot.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't know because the note was written by Henrik, so we don't know. Yeah, shit.
Especially if we know that spirits can come and possess bodies before they die, yada yada.
Yeah, yeah. It could have even been a spirit that's
And reenact the spirits reenact the past. Hello, Solus. So, especially if it is especially heinous. So
But even
you don't know what
even Antonia's feelings when she reads the note. Sidony's speculating: was it confusion, fear? She doesn't know, but I mean, they can relate to spirits. But
It
equally,
was the first time that her mask fell down. The first time that she saw
Yeah.
without the mask.
yeah. But it's also would she be confused about why the note's been given to her? How Henrik has suddenly given her this note? But then the fear: why would she be scared of that? What is she scared of?
She doesn't seem like she's afraid of much.
Exactly.
You would
And again,
assume-
Sidony's assuming here from afar,
Yeah.
but she's reading her
Well,
face
and
at
you
some
would-
point.
You would assume that if she was like had any fear of Sidony, she would have ended her in the tomb, like right then and there.
Yeah.
But she didn't. She let Sidony go.
Yeah.
So,
Because she knew she had complete power over Sidony and there was nothing that Sidony could do.
She could say whatever she
But
wanted.
Sidony's like,
Here's what the thing though is, does it really say who the winner was? They go and they meet in alley, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like an old west draw. If you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Ooh,
Ooh, who's gonna
true.
walk out of that?
It's true, and it
Didn't
says
they
their
say that
screams
they-
because they're both screaming.
Sidony would be too. No, because they said the people would discover the Mortalitatis' body,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Sidony would not be too far to hear their scream.
Yeah,
So
to hear the person who discovers
Yeah.
the body.
Got
Yeah.
you.
She's planning
What
on
sense is
making
that?
it out of there
Planning?
alive.
Oh, planning. Okay, because I mean, is it past tense or is
They
it?
would pass. So it's they would be too far, would part. So it's they
So
would.
yeah, it's Sidony
it's
planning that all this is
planning
gonna
that.
go well.
Yeah.
I would say Antonia's dead. pretty dead.
I wonder though how. I mean, I kind of wish we could have gotten
Ooh,
to
what
read
if-
that part. I would like to know how Sidony overpowered her, someone who's been killing this whole time,
Yeah.
fairly
Probably
easily.
off guard.
Yeah.
She was probably like Antonia was probably panicking because of the letter or the note, and she just got into the alley and just didn't start monologuing and just
Yeah.
instantly fucking
Got
blasted
into
her.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? Nah. While you're in a state of confusion or fear. Yeah.
I mean, there's.
What if
I
we
also
meet
wonder.
Sidony in Veilguard though?
Yeah.
I would not be surprised.
If she's somewhere in Navarra,
Or at
and
least
she's like,
Emmerich will mention Antonia and the situation as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, the thing about the new gameplay we saw yesterday was the scale of NPCs and quest givers, and I'm like, okay, it looks like there's quite a lot of NPCs in this world. Easily can add a few old returning characters. Nothing massive. I'm not saying like, I know as much as we'd love it, but like not having everybody from the previous games. But like the comic characters like this easily could be added. I think pretty
Yeah.
I also
easily.
had no idea that Sidony was a character from the multiplayer. I've
Yeah,
never played the multiplayer.
Yeah.
game.
So she
Oh,
hangs
what?
out in
Really?
She hangs out in Skyhold.
Oh.
So near where Cullen's area is, on the first floor. There's always 3 multiplayer characters hanging out, and they always rotate, and they have little banter and dialogue. So you'll have one of them rotating, and sometimes it's Sidony. But yeah, she's one of the characters.
That's
so she's
amazing.
got party
I did
banter.
not notice that.
Yeah, I think she's the first mage character you get for free. I can't remember, but you can play as her in the multiplayer. So she's fully
not the
voiced.
keeper?
No, yeah, sorry, the keeper.
In
Yeah, the
multiplayer?
keeper. But yeah, okay. So she's one you have to unlock then. But yeah, she's one of the characters you can get, and has loads of death magic, like Dorian's class.
Oh shit!
Necromancer.
Nice.
Yeah, that's so cool.
But yeah, so you get a bit of party dialogue with her and a few of the other characters. So she's got a voice.
Damn.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Although I remember someone asked in the beginning of the stream if you were going to react to the rogue gameplay.
I will not do that today, but I need to watch it myself first. But
Yeah.
I'm currently making a video on a massive story recap of every single game and media and movie. So that's my priority, which is hopefully going to come out tomorrow. But yeah.
Damn.
Oh, tomorrow.
There
Wow.
was something else I noticed in this that could have something to do with Antonia and maybe even the little note she was given. Do you all remember how protective the bartender was of Antonia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was in on everything?
I mean, that could be because of, she's been going outside and trying to get the trust of all the people. She probably has helped him with something. Probably
Maybe.
death related.
Possibly. I don't know.
I
This
feel
flag
because
was a little red flag for me in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think
Very.
it's just showcasing that she is very good at socializing with people, pulling on the little things
Yeah.
that
For
draw
sure.
on them.
Getting into
And it's not a
circles
stretch to
and
think that
dominating.
Immortality could very easily, gain influence and favors
Yeah.
just by helping various people with death-related things.
Like maybe someone in his family died.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
easily.
She helped. So
Yeah.
But she knows so many people, and it sounds like so many people are willing to get her back. So I'm interested to see if that comes back at all.
Yeah. I think the only reservation I have about Sidony being in the Veilguard is she hates Navarra City. And I know the Immortality did welcome her back, but I think if she survived, she kind of would give an FU to Cassandra, the Inquisition, because of feeling used. I get the sensation she kind of wants to
and also I feel like after she killed Antonia,
Yeah.
I don't think she
She's
is
gonna-
welcome back.
Literally. So it's a bit like,
Fair point.
although that was the mission anyway of the Inquisition, so she'd be fine under that. But still, I think she just wants to say, you know what, screw everybody who's used me. I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like a rogue agent situation.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I was wondering at first if she could be part of, maybe Emmerich's personal quest, but if she's kind of detached from the Mortalitasi now, that might not work out.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool to see. It would be really cool to see. Just the idea of hearing Emmerich's quest line and having Navarran plots in this game has me so excited, because it is the lore that I've been so excited for since hearing about Dragon Age 4. Just the whole death culture, I love it. So the fact that we're going to be going there, and the Necropolis and other parts of Navarra, we assume, plot lines, meeting these characters like Audric and Emmerich and Manfred, I can't wait for it. I love that
really
lore
hope we
so
I'm
much.
very excited to take part in the lore that is not Orlean for
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So much now.
I'm like, give me some Ravane.
Yeah.
Give me
Give
some
me
Couch Rock.
everything.
Yeah.
I am so sick and tired of Ferelden at this point.
Yeah, it's
Give me
true.
some.
Navarra,
Yes.
Fever.
An interesting look for me in this story, though, because I kind of always thought that Cassandra was exaggerating when she said how annoying the
Yes.
Nobles and stuff were. But I didn't realize it was straight up a petty blood feud war, and everyone has to take sides, and so it was really interesting. And
Well, imagine
I
how her
thought-
family is.
Oh yeah, exactly. I also thought that the game was really only played in Orlais, but the game is very much alive in Navarra. Oh my God.
Oh, that's a good
It feels
point
like
too.
a different
That is
type of
such a good
game.
yeah, but she did mention, I will not play your games, but very much similar to Orlais. Yeah.
But I feel that's in the in this world too. that like a lot of like celebrities and like the people that are famous, they play a certain type of game because they need to have
the political intrigue of it all.
Yeah, they need to get on top of each other, but they need to like show a nice face because otherwise the social media is gonna rip into them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's also a type of game.
Yeah, it's true. It's
people
true.
that you think would kind of
There's
be more
also-
neutral, being more like gray, is super interesting to me because I thought the Mortalitasi would be like, who cares about politics? But no, very.
Oh yeah, they're
interesting
very into it. Yeah, it
I
controls
feel
their
that's
ruling
also
elite.
that's also a thing in real life with the church. So
Yes,
to say,
it's a good comparison.
it's like
to make.
they're like
Yeah.
we're not interested in politics. It's like yes, you
Yeah.
fucking are.
Yeah. It's true.
Like there is almost nothing about like today's churches, doesn't matter which religion you're from, that doesn't try to capitalize
On some sort of
on-
political scenario.
yeah.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true.
There's also
So-
a bit of an elephant in the room we have not addressed.
Oh.
Cyrus is an elf.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know what the standing of elves are in Navarra, but it sounds like in terms of world building it's okay. Like they can rise up in classes and become well respected and
I feel if you have
wealthy.
a lot of the like in Thedas, some people have like an elf king, and I feel like he might have taken advantage of that,
Oh,
and
definitely.
like people tell like he starts to flirt a bit, do this, and then people tell him secrets, and then he gotten so many secrets and got so dangerous that people
think it-
respected him.
It was interesting that Sidony was like surprised at that.
Yes,
though. She was
exactly.
Like, an elf?
This-
like you
She
didn't
was
say elf
surprised.
specifically though. She did
She
say
did say
she didn't
this
say
elf
She
had
did say,
power
like-
that made people who should fear nothing
yeah,
tremble.
and then something.
Yeah, they went out of their way
and
to
it was
make that clear.
crazy.
Yeah.
Something about how can like someone who's not a noble be touching this guy like
Yeah.
so casually,
Hmm.
like. So I think it is more just like what noble family
Yeah.
you are aligned with, or what your reputation is around those noble
sure.
families.
Right.
I feel like he has so many dark secrets that people just fear him
Oh,
so much
exactly.
that they do not dare
Literally.
to touch him
Literally.
because
Right.
you don't know
But-
what kind of contingency plans he has in place. Like if he dies, then all of a sudden like shit goes out because who knows if he has like people working under him.
Exactly.
So it's
yeah.
like
Right. I was
You
thinking
don't
something
know.
along the lines of kind of like a Navaran shadow broker type,
Yeah.
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 where he just holds so much dirt on everyone
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
he could literally start, chaos if
Yeah.
he really wanted to.
Oh yeah, no, she does go out of her way to say an elf in such finery, mocking and touching a member of the old Novaran nobility, and no one batting an eye.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he is an elf who's like
Rose.
sort of like Briala, just worked his way
Yeah,
up.
just worked into the
Right.
into the Navaran political intrigue. What is a political what would you call Navarra's government if it's literally controlled by Navarre, the Navaran noble families, but then actually controlled by a faction of death mages? Because Tevinter's a majorocracy, Antiva is run by its merchant princes. What even is the Navarra's governmental system even called? I'm sure there's a proper word for it, but I'd need to
Right.
check.
Do they use a prime minister?
Does Navarra have a chantry? Is that like a
Yes.
thing?
probably yeah.
It does.
Oh, it's a,
Don't they have,
it's a monarch because you've got Marcus Pentagast, the
Oh, right,
ruler.
duh, he's the king, duh.
Yeah.
Don't they have
Yeah,
don't they
duh,
have that
yeah,
like
well,
hidden
Because
chantry
Navarra
or what
is
is
the
it?
king.
Yeah, they've got their
Or
monarch.
where's that hidden chantry?
The
Is
black,
that not in Navarra?
the black chantry's in Tevinter.
I
No,
thought
there's like a hidden
Ravane. Oh, okay.
Ravane, there's like a
where
hidden one.
it's like we have a chantry, but no one really listens to those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't either, to be honest.
Yeah. Can kind of get why.
So it is just really interesting to that brought up a whole different point, that like the chantry ideals that like we're used to seeing, you know, in Ferelden and Orlais are obviously even different in Navarra, because the practices of putting a spirit into a corpse is just very much taboo in Ferelden.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How does the chantry like justify and talk about the mortalitasi?
It's true. That's the thing, because that's completely against what they believe, that when a person dies, their spirit enters the Fade to be with the Maker. But as their spirit goes to be with the Maker, it displaces another Fade spirit in the Fade. And so they swap that Fade spirit who leaves that body, and they put the Fade spirit that's displaced into that body. So they kind of have their Maker reason of, well, when this body goes to the soul to meet the Maker, another spirit gets displaced, and that's one of the Maker's children. So we're going to put that into a body instead and keep that safe harbor. So they have their own reason for it that is justified by the Maker. But basically, what we can understand is every country has its own codified version of the chantry, and they're making rules up, basically.
Which is very, you know,
also a good
real to real life.
Yeah, taking denominations and adding things and removing things, and but that's their reason for it. Which I love, though, because the ambiguity of it, it's crazy. And Solas hates that, because you're binding spirits against their will, but they have a justifiable reason for it. That is literally...
It's like Christianity, for example, is so much different here in Sweden than it is in, like, the US.
For sure.
Oh,
so it's like, you know...
Yeah.
It makes sense that it's different in every country. And...
Absolutely. They've got their own reasons for it, and they justify it, and that also ties to their ruling elite, which is all just full circle. And somehow, you know, the most privileged people are the ones who are in those scenarios. It's brilliant. I love it. That's why I love Dragon Age as well, because it's so intimately and intellectually written. It's fantastic.
And it's very intricate. It's like not one set path, and it's like it's also vague, which is like very true to real life.
Yeah, it's open to so many
it's
interpretations.
Like not, yeah, and it's like because for example the elven gods as well. It's like one people are like, oh, they love us, they're benevolent, you know, like we should worship them because they love us, and then Solus comes along and it's like, no.
Nope. That's slave markings and you should not.
Please, can I take them from you?
Yeah.
One of the most like emotional parts of like any of the trailers that I've seen so far was the line from Balara when she says, "Those are our gods, our gods. How do we stand against?" Like that hit me so hard.
Yeah.
Like I started crying. I was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be intense for every single person in Thedas. Like everyone is going to have their morality rocked again."
Literally.
But also, I see Solus cringing so hard when she says that. He's like, "Oh no, not God, please."
Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions on Murder by Death Mages, folks?
Has chat any questions?
I haven't even looked at the chat. Like, man, I'm gonna have to go back and read that.
You should. It's a good time.
It's great.
I knew I would get too distracted if I was looking.
I have made some people be like, "What the fuck?" with my comments here and there, but you know.
Oh, what was your comment?
Oh, the fuck was it? I think there's a kink for that or whatever.
Oh.
They're like, what the
fuck? That's me on the Discord chat. Everyone's like, oh.
I live in Morningville, so there was once this Dragon Age Discord that I was a part of, and I was literally just in there because like everything I say is inappropriate, and I don't know how to handle this.
That's all right. That's just all of us in the Blooming Rose. Just what was it? Thirsting for Solus's toes and things like that.
Yes.
Not calling anybody out in particular.
Me? I could never. I want to see his wolf beam toes.
I love it that I have found friends here.
Oh yeah. Final thoughts, not about Murder by Death Mages, but just like I have been convinced to continue my Soul of Ellen Inquisitor,
Yes!
play.
Yes, go on,
That's the one
Waxy.
I'm gonna
Do
be.
it. It's a one of us.
Do it, Waxy.
No, yeah, no. I was like,
One of us, one
I'm not
of
gonna
us.
put off the heartbreak. I'm gonna find out one way or another, and we're
Do
gonna
it.
figure it out.
Yes.
Make it Solus and his toe beans.
Make it,
Decaster.
yes. Naked Sauceless Toe Beans. Yes, Decaster.
Hey man, I'm still hoping that when we get to see some of Solus's flashbacks, we'll get to see,
His Toe Beans.
You know,
His toe
you
beans.
know what I want
toe
to
beans.
see.
So ready for that.
You know what I want to see? I want
His toe
him
beans?
to. I want to see him. Sure, yeah. I hate feet, but might as well. No, I want him to. I want to see him leave that Alluvion and absolutely break down.
That's what I'm
Oh,
I want the eggs.
Please. I need to
Can-
see it all from Solus's point of view, and then he can be just like crying, devastated, listening to Taylor Swift. Or
Yeah. Like, I don't even like Taylor Swift that much, but I am going to listen to Taylor Swift and eat ice cream and drink wine and be like,
I want to choose a dialogue, and I want to press X to break LeBlan's heart.
yes.
Oh. But like, what do I say?
No,
in this
I
one?
wanna-
But his, like, from the, what is it called? Vows and Vengeance? What is it called?
Oh, Vows and Vengeance. Yeah, Vows and
Yeah.
Vengeance. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Garrett's voice acting has improved so much, so I'm like, oh my god, what we're gonna get in Veilguard,
Veilguard,
I'm going to, it's
Mhm.
going to break my heart,
As it should.
and I'm gonna be crying, like, for like, all of November,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah. It hasn't been like
And-
confirmed, but I do like the fact that at least from the trailer we saw, we can see Solas physically in the Fade for these moments too. I love the idea of the audio in head stuff, but I like actually seeing him, getting that physicality of him, so we can actually see him expressing his emotions too.
Yeah.
So I like that too. And again, I don't know how much of that is in the game, obviously, but at least we saw it in the trailer after we disrupt the ritual.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for more, just to actually see him properly, besides the voice rental thing, and besides the, memories in the crossroads.
I have not watched any of that, so
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's
There's
the
so
only
much-
thing I heard when I
Any
joined it, and then I heard that, and then I dipped.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
nope.
any new information is like, at this point, I'm full.
Yeah.
I don't care what new information I get because I have the game pre-ordered. I'm gonna be playing it.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
whatever
already
comes-
sold.
I have-
Yeah, you're
I
already
have
sold.
Yeah, I'm already
everything
sold,
pre-ordered.
We just need 9 or 8 weeks, or however long left it is now, just to go like that. And right now it is
Yeah.
digesting all the content. Is it 8 weeks or 9 weeks?
Oh my
Really?
god! Every time you say that, it's like a gut punch.
Sorry,
It's
I'm
every
sorry.
time.
It's seven. Hold on, 7 or 8
Let's
weeks.
just-
Let me see.
7 days.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh,
Somebody
October's...
in
No, it's 8. 8
Okay.
weeks.
There you go, 8 weeks tomorrow.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
somebody in the server today, ping me and make sure that I at least work on the first chapter today. Okay? Somebody, please,
Okay,
God.
okay. Oh yeah.
You're gonna write
I'm gonna ping you
fanfiction?
every single day now.
We're just like very annoying. We should have like one like chat that is just for pinging.
Yeah, can we make a channel with just a few editing options, and Emily can't even put any comments in it and just ping? How about everybody else can comment in it, and it can be one comment and it can be pinging Moonlight?
Yeah,
There we go.
just pinging Moonlight. It's like, come on, you can do
Jesus.
it.
Yeah,
Aggressive reinforcement.
yeah, aggressive.
Reinforcement. I mean, if that's how it gets done, I mean, it's,
Oh no!
I could
Don't
come
look
to your
at
house
the.
as well and be like, just knocking on the door, like, work on it.
Uh-oh, you've caused something now, Emily.
57 days?
57 days?
57 days.
Oh my god. Why did I
Crazy.
agree to do this? Actually, you know what? It's my own fault. I promised myself to do this. I don't have to do this. I can forget about it. Nobody actually knows. I didn't say publicly, except for all of you wonderful people, that I was doing it. So technically,
Which
internet
is like how
doesn't
many
know.
people? 53.
Emily, you've caused it now.
Oh shit! I just said it. No. Oh no! I'm in a video. Oh.
No,
Oh
look at
God!
this.
I just. Oh. Oh no! Why am I pinged? Oh God! 16 guys. Oh shit! Get your cannon wrecked? Really?
Your cannon, right? Wait, who said that?
I mean wrecked. It was already wrecked. Oh no.
Oh my god, this is great. I love you guys.
We'll tell on you. That's what Belinda's Kitty said.
Keep going.
Well, I mean, it's public because I forgot I was on video because this is, well, the chat is on my phone and then I'm doing this on my computer. So
This is
sometimes
all
I forget.
Villainous
And now
Kitty
it's live.
She's going to timestamp it. She's going to timestamp it in the comments.
Yes. It was
Uh,
at 10:43 when we said it, so
Ping, ping, ping.
I hate my. Okay, well, now I have to do it. Now I have to do it. Listen. It's not that bad. I have the first portion of the chapter written, of the first chapter. I just have to stop writing the other chapters and work on the first. Do you guys do that? Do you write out of order?
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
I can't
100%.
write.
oh yes.
Yeah.
I learned it. I
Drives me nuts.
studied film and stuff like
Yeah.
so I
Ooh.
did story and then which is storytelling as well. Like a lot of people write the center first of
Mhm.
the story and then at the end write like the beginning and the end.
Just write what you know when you know it.
Mm.
There you go.
Normally, what I do is you can't force this. You can't force inspiration. I mean,
Right.
sometimes
I
it
would even do that
happens
on
when I'm.
essays and shit in college. It drove me nuts.
I mean
That's
that.
where
I mean,
I'm
if it's
at.
essays, sort of force
I'm
that.
at the finals week of the summer semester for my illustration classes, and this is the last week, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah?
no, I don't want to do it. I don't want
Feel that.
to. No, that's
Oh,
okay.
that's
It's just
what's going
a lot of
on.
my inspiration has not been here this semester, so I'm taking fall off to play Veilguard, and then winter semester, my inspiration's gonna be at
Excellent.
time.
I really need to get like some courage to ask my boss to be off when Veilguard comes out.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is though, he's not even that like probably when I ask he's like sure, but I'm like I don't know, my brain is not letting me.
Eris, what the hell? What do you
Our
mean?
brains are-
What do you mean you know where I get my angst from?
Soul of Ellen.
Soul of Ellen is an outlet for my angst.
I mean, true. That is very true.
We will wrap this up here then. Thank you again all for your fantastical, beautiful voices for this one. It was honestly amazing. I want to say, like, I don't want to say this, but I really had a lot of fun on this one. I've had a lot of fun on the other ones, but this one, the chemistry, the synergy for the voices was there, and it was amazing. So I really, really appreciate you all coming on and doing this. It was really, really good. And chat, thank you for being so kind, heartwarming, and joining us for...
Y'all are wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for Murder of
I had a great
Death
time.
Mages. Thank you, yeah. If anybody's want to do it again, I'm going to put the next one up in the Discord for next week, and that is Nev Gallus, where we're going to get kind of an origin story. Not really an origin story, but at least before we see her in Veilguard or what she was up to before then. And we're going to have the caster taking the main role as Nev for that one, taking on a...
The caster!
Yeah, because we figured for a British character she wants to do it, so the cast is going to be Nev, and there are other characters in that too. I believe there's a few Templars, there's a few, there's a Venatori cultist by Ayla, and I'll get the full characters, but I'll put that in the Discord channel for anybody
That
who
sounds
wants to
interesting.
take that one on. And then I think after that it's the week maker job, so we are in for some good stories already. Obviously, we're already getting some really good ones, but like Wigmaker Job, Streets of Imrathis, really, really good shit. So yeah, but thank you again to Waxy, Emily, Venom, and Tiny. Really appreciate you all for joining me on this one. And
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So-
Y'all have an amazing day.
any flipping time, seriously mean it. So yeah, again, thank you all so much, and we will see you next week on Rook Club. But until then, I hope you all take care and have a lovely rest of